Before we get started, I wanted to wish LEGO Dimensions a happy 10th anniversary. I commissioned the talented artist JakiWasHere to create this awesome logo for the occasion. Here's to 10 years of the greatest LEGO game ever made. Thank you TT Games for bringing this community closer together. LEGO Dimensions is arguably the most unique game in all of the TT Games LEGO series. It stands out for so many reasons. It's the only Toys to Life game in the series, it's focused less on a singular franchise and instead focused on crossovers and bringing together multiple different movies, games, and TV shows into a single LEGO-themed experience. So, I decided to put my money where my mouth is, and I made it my goal to finish my LEGO Dimensions collection so that I could rank every single character on a single tier list and finally find out just who the best LEGO Dimensions characters are. For those of you that are new here, hi, I'm GoblinBricks. I make videos all about LEGO games, LEGO sets, and just LEGO stuff in general. But today we're embarking on arguably my biggest project yet. Welcome to every LEGO Dimensions character ranked. Before we get started, I'm going to quickly run over my ranking system and how I'll be scoring each character so we know what the rules are. As I said before, Dimensions is very unique next to other LEGO games. For one thing, being a Toys to Life product means each character in the game was sold separately at retail. These packs varied in price, content, and what they bring to the table. This is different to your standard LEGO game where most characters are unlockable in the game for free, outside of the occasional DLC pack. This means we won't just be judging characters on how many abilities they have or if they're good to play in the game. There are some unique things to take into account, so let me explain my system. Each character will be judged in 5 categories, and each category can award up to 10 points, meaning that in total every character will have a score from 0 at the bottom to 50 points at the top. The 5 categories in play are usefulness. For the usefulness category, we will be taking into account how many abilities the character has, whether they're useful to keep on the toy pad, and if they possess any unique traits or abilities that set them apart from the other characters. This isn't just based on how many abilities they have, but also if they're useful or rare abilities. Content. As LEGO Dimensions characters would also grant access to extra content for the game, like hub worlds, level packs, or story packs, we will also be judging characters based on what additional stuff they bring to the game itself. The more exclusive content they possess, the better they will score in the content category. This means if characters have little to no exclusive content, or if they share content with a bunch of other characters, like mutual hub worlds, they will score lower. Minifigure. Being a Toys to Life game, I decided to include a category based entirely on the toy aspect. How good is the minifigure? Does it contain exclusive LEGO elements? Is the printing or detailing good? Does it even look like the character it's trying to depict? Is the minifigure or character exclusive to Dimensions, or is it a reuse from other LEGO products? These are the questions I will be taking into account with the minifigure category, with higher scores indicating a better design or more exclusive figure. Representation. With Dimensions being a mishmash of franchises coming together, I also wanted to look at how well the character is represented in the game. This is mainly going to come down to things like whether the characters are being accurately depicted, if they're voiced by their authentic voice actors, and how their dialogue was handled for the game. For voice acting specifically, I will be awarding more points if they hired the original actor or a returning voice actor for the role, or if they hired a stand-in or backup voice actor to portray the character due to other circumstances. Both of these circumstances are generally the best way to represent a character. I will be awarding less points, however, if they used archived audio from a film or TV show with no original work done for Dimensions, as this is often lazy and non-interactive, or in some rare cases if they just don't talk for some reason, as these options are the worst ways to represent a character, feeling like a significant step down from proper voice acting. Fun. This one is by far the most subjective category on the list, and will mainly come down to if I enjoy playing as the character. In many ways, this is an amalgamation of the other categories, with characters that have lots of abilities, good voice work, and enjoyable content scoring higher than characters that lack quality, usefulness, or additional gameplay. With all that said, I will be presenting the characters in order of release, starting with the starter pack characters and moving through each release wave, summing up my thoughts about them as I go, before presenting you with a scorecard that looks like this. The number of points given will then sort each character onto a tier list, ranked from S through to D. You know how this works, but at the end of the video there will be a bonus round with some input from other LEGO YouTubers and GoblinBricks community members, so stick around for that. One tidbit to note, we will not be judging vehicles in today's list. Just remember, this list is my personal opinion, and try not to get too butthurt or upset if your favourite character or franchise doesn't place where you want them to. No more rules, let's do this. So let's start with the Caped Crusader himself, Batman. So, Batman is an interesting case for many reasons. Obviously, he's famous for being Batman, but in a LEGO sense, this guy had 3 main titles under his belt by now. 3 full games full of references, mechanics, and abilities that basically all got thrown out for how he works in Dimensions. To be clear, this guy is the same Batman from the LEGO Batman video games, but due to being a starter pack character, he is unfortunately very basic to play as. In terms of what he can do, he's really only good for his grapple, boomerang, and stealth abilities. Other than that, Batman possesses no unique utility from the rest of the cast, being your run-of-the-mill character. So, for usefulness, Batman gets a 3. Moving into content, as a starter pack character, Batman includes access to the DC Comics hub world, which itself is a weird mashup of Gotham City and Metropolis, only a couple of years before DC villains would do the exact same thing. But if you've played any of the previous LEGO Batman titles, you'll more than likely be very disappointed with the scale and size of the world, with it feeling very soulless in my opinion. Not helping things is that the DC Comics hub world is shared by no less than 10 total characters, meaning it's not exclusive to Batman at all. However, Batman has one unique quality that does give him some bonus points in the content department, as through the use of a red brick in-game, you can play as a completely different version of Batman using the very same toy tag, allowing you to use Will Arnett's Batman from the LEGO Batman movie. This is more than just a skin swap, complete with new animations, voice lines, and abilities. And he's genuinely better than the starter pack Batman. Taking this into consideration, I'm going to give Batman a 5 for content. Hopping into the minifigure category, Batman is a solid fig. His cowl piece and cape give him a really distinct silhouette, and I like the style of torso printing used around this time. Technically, this is a unique variant for Dimensions, though other figs did use this torso print with a slightly different cowl. Batman's minifigure gets a 6 out of 10. Being a direct continuation of the LEGO Batman games, this version of Batman is generally really well represented. He's a core part of the story and has a lot of voice acting. However, the elephant in the room is that he's voiced by Troy Baker. Personally, I would have loved to hear Kevin Conroy in the role. Not that this detracts from Troy's performance at all, but Kevin is and always will be the definitive voice of Batman to many people, to the point where he even took over the role from Troy for LEGO DC Supervillains.
I am the Knight.
Once again, Will Arnett also voices the movie variant of Batman, meaning technically Batman is extra well represented with 2 different versions complete with 2 different voices in one character.
First try.
Overall, however, I think Batman gets a 7 out of 10 for representation, given my mixed feelings about Troy Baker's performance in the role as Batman.
I'm a Batman.
If we're talking plainly about the original Batman, I don't find him that fun to use, but thanks to the addition of the LEGO Batman movie variant, who is absolutely hilarious, I think Batman gets an 8 out of 10 for fun. Altogether, this gives Batman a score of 29 points, placing him firmly in the B tier. Up next, we have Wildstyle from the LEGO movie. Now, Wildstyle is a notably more agile character with some unique uses from the starter pack. Lucy comes with 3 main abilities, including Master Builder. She has the Acrobat ability, letting her perform a double jump, do wall jumps, and swing on poles. But by far the best and rarest of her abilities is the Relic Detector, something that is only shared with 2 other characters in the whole game. With that said, despite being a very basic character, the Relic Detector ability pushes Wildstyle's usefulness score up to 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, in terms of content, the only thing Lucy brings to the table is access to the LEGO Movie Hub World, which in itself is a decent hub. The only issue is this access is shared with 4 other characters, meaning it's not exclusive, and therefore I'm giving her a 3 out of 10 for content. Taking a look at the Wildstyle minifig, I like this one a lot. It's spot on to her appearance in the LEGO movie, and whilst it is a reuse from the LEGO movie theme, it does a good job of portraying a character and therefore gets a 5 out of 10. Where Wildstyle really shines for me is in the representation department. Her actress from the LEGO movie returns for her role in LEGO Dimensions, performing all new voice lines and clips specially for the game.
How do you suppose she ever took a bath?
Maybe that isn't monkeys we can smell.
In addition to this, Wildstyle is animated in-game to move like her appearance from the LEGO movie, making her whole depiction in-game feel very authentic to how she appears in the movie. This is literally a perfect translation of the character, 10 out of 10. So, in terms of fun, I find using Wildstyle to be the strongest of the 3 starter pack characters. She's quick on her feet, her double jump makes platforming challenges feel fun to pull off, and she's generally pretty handy for her Relic Detector alone. So, with that in mind, she gets a 7 out of 10 in fun. Overall, Wildstyle scores 30 points, placing her in the A tier. A great character to have, even if it mostly comes down to her authenticity and her Relic Detector. Coming straight from the Shire, Gandalf the Grey is the last member of our starter pack trio for LEGO Dimensions. Gandalf's 3 main abilities are Magic, Illumination, and Magic Shield, which all make perfect sense for the character given his status as a wizard. However, Dimensions has a bunch of magically inclined characters that severely outclass Gandalf, with one of them doing so before we even get to Year 2. This unfortunately makes Gandalf significantly less useful by comparison, leaving him with a 3 out of 10 for usefulness. Gandalf grants access to the Lord of the Rings hub world, which is fairly sizable compared to some of the other Year 1 worlds. However, he too shares access to this content with 3 other Lord of the Rings characters, meaning it's by no means exclusive, landing him with a 3 out of 10 for content. Gandalf's minifigure is accurate to the character, with his grey hat, beard and cloak doing the heavy lifting, with some rather unremarkable printing for his torso. I don't love this figure, and it's pretty much the same as the one seen in 4 other Lord of the Rings sets from before Dimensions, leaving Gandalf with a 3 out of 10 for his minifigure score. In the movies, Gandalf was played by the legendary actor Sir Ian McKellen, who unfortunately does not reprise his role for LEGO Dimensions. Thankfully though, the voice was picked up by Tom Kane, who returned to voice Gandalf from various other Lord of the Rings projects.
We are in Middle-earth.
Do you mean Middle Zealand?
No.
This is the first instance on the list of a stand-in voice actor for a movie character, which is significantly better than reusing audio, giving Gandalf a 5 in representation. Unfortunately, due to his lack of abilities and status as worst wizard in the game, Gandalf isn't really much fun to play as, lacking a unique ability or draw to make him fun. This, for me, puts Gandalf at a 3 out of 10 for fun. Adding up his score, Gandalf has a total of 17 points, putting him in the C tier. Now, with all 3 of the starter pack characters squared away, it's time to move into Wave 1 of LEGO Dimensions, which was released alongside the starter pack in 2015. This is also the biggest wave the game ever got. Marty McFly from the classic Back to the Future movie franchise was an exciting inclusion for many children that grew up in the 80s. He's a beloved character from a beloved franchise, so let's see how he was handled in LEGO Dimensions. Marty has a single ability to his character. Yep, you heard me right. 1, which is Sonar Smash. This ability is very common amongst the roster, unfortunately making Marty one of the most useless characters to use in-game. Marty gets a 1 out of 10 for usefulness. Content-wise, however, Marty is the first character on the list who was sold in a level pack. This means that besides sharing access to the Back to the Future hub world with one other character, Marty also has access to the Back to the Future level pack, which is a whole level added onto the game. This is exclusive to him and therefore nets him a 5 out of 10 for content. Before you comment, try playing the Back to the Future level pack. It's not great. Marty's minifig is a good depiction of his character. It was used in one other LEGO set 2 years prior to Dimensions release, meaning no elements of it are exclusive. I give Marty's fig a 5 out of 10 for at least being decent and somewhat resembling the character. Now, this is where things pick up for Marty. Somehow, Michael J. Fox returned to play Marty McFly 25 years after the release of the 3rd movie, bringing with him all new voice lines specially recorded for Dimensions.
Oh, well, I guess I can kick back for a while.
We love to see it. This is a perfect representation of the character, in my opinion. 10 out of 10. In terms of fun factor, I don't think Marty has a lot going for him. The level pack isn't one of the better ones. The hub world has some unique elements to it, but once again, isn't exclusive to Marty. And due to the fact we're not including vehicles on this list, Marty gets left in an unfortunate position, landing him a 1 for fun. I just don't dig using him with his single ability being pretty much useless. Altogether, Marty's total adds up to 22 points, putting him in the B tier. His exclusive level pack access and Michael J. Fox returning to the role are the only things stopping him from being a D tier character. Chell is a fan favourite Dimensions character that literally nobody saw coming. She's a well-beloved character from Valve's Portal series, which itself has only spawned 2 main entries with people really wanting more Portal content. Chell may only have 2 abilities, with one of them being Acrobat, allowing her to double jump, perform wall jumps, and swing on poles, just like Wildstyle. But the other and more significant ability is the Portal Gun, which is exclusive to her character, allowing Chell to solve a ton of puzzles solely on her own, making her an essential essential character for 100% completion and bumping her usefulness up to a 6 out of 10. This is a perfect example of what I said in the intro. It's not all about quantity of abilities, but the quality also, with Chell filling a unique role in the game. Content-wise, Chell is a slam dunk. This is because she includes exclusive access to the Portal 2 hub world and also to the Portal 2 level pack, as Chell was a level pack character, bringing one of the best level packs into the game and making all of her content completely unique and exclusive to her. 10 out of 10. Chell's minifigure is the only version of the character to currently exist in LEGO, but also comes with exclusive printing on the torso, dual molded legs, and an exclusive portal gun piece that feels absolutely perfect to the games. This is a 10 out of 10 minifigure in every way. Now, as if Chell couldn't get any more unique, her voice actor doesn't return to Dimensions because she doesn't really have one. Chell is a mute character, and therefore, ironically, this is a perfect representation for LEGO Dimensions. However, it doesn't stop there. It's worth noting that throughout her content in the game, the rest of the Portal 2 voice cast returned to voice their characters, meaning Dimensions really faithfully represented the franchise.
Hello? What are you hiding there?
You.
This makes the third category, which Chell receives a 10 out of 10 for. Overall, due to her unique utility, amazing level pack and hub world, and amazing minifigure, Chell is one of the best characters in LEGO Dimensions, excellently selling the concept of a crossover title, giving us something we would have never otherwise seen get its own LEGO game. I give Chell an 8 out of 10 for fun as one of my favourite characters in the game. Adding up Chell's score, she lands on 44 points, becoming our first character in the S tier, a truly unique character that aces every category in one way or another. Arguably animation's most famous patriarch, Homer Simpson was another iconic inclusion for LEGO Dimensions, and one that got fans old and new very excited to explore Springfield. Homer's arsenal of abilities isn't exactly a big one. He's got 3 main abilities with Sonar Smash, Big Transform, and Chili Eating.
North, please.
Which isn't really an ability in the traditional sense. Homer can also transform into Giant Homer where he gains super strength abilities. Unfortunately though, outside of his one-time context-sensitive chili ability, Homer isn't exactly useful. He gets a 2 out of 10. Homer is another one of the Year 1 level pack characters, meaning he gives access to both the Simpsons hub world and the Simpsons level pack, with the level pack being exclusive to him. Usually this would be a near slam dunk. However, the Simpsons hub world is both shared with other characters and extremely lacking in personality, with nobody there saying anything. Overall, the Simpsons content in Dimensions is pretty mediocre, leaving Homer with a 5 out of 10 for content. In terms of minifigures, Homer has a really good design. This is thanks to the fact that he is actually brought over from the Simpsons LEGO theme, meaning whilst it's a great fig with a custom head and some dual molded arms, it's not Dimensions exclusive in any way. With that in mind, I'll give Homer's minifigure a 5 out of 10. Now, representation is really the area that Homer falls down in. Keep in mind, we're talking about one of the most iconic cartoon characters of all time. But unfortunately, Dimensions only secured the rights to reusing archived audio of Dan Castellaneta from the show. In my top 5 video, this was something I barely noticed, but with more experience under my belt, it's actually very obvious that Homer is repeating the same few phrases. In my opinion, this is one of the biggest misses in the game, leaving Homer with a 2 out of 10 for representation. This would normally be a 1 out of 10 situation, as I absolutely can't stand the use of archived audio, though Homer gets 1 bonus point simply for being an iconic voice in the game.
Yeah, that's me, alright.
I think Homer is actually quite fun for a short time, but once the novelty wears off, which it will, he's not very notable to play as. His abilities aren't great, and the content didn't deliver on the level it should have. I'll give Homer a 4 out of 10 for fun. When taking all of Homer's points into account, his total score is 18 points, placing him in the C tier. Homer's sheer iconic status is the only thing keeping him out of D tier. Moving from one animation giant to the next, Shaggy Rogers from the Scooby-Doo franchise is an all-time great. Let's see what this meddling kid can do. Shaggy has 4 main abilities with tracking, illumination, stealth, and glide. meaning that when it comes to puzzles, he's very situational. Still, 4 abilities isn't awful, and tracking itself isn't very common, and they all feel on brand for the character. So Shaggy gets a 4 out of 10 for usefulness. As a Team Pack character, Shaggy only grants access to the Scooby-Doo hub world, which he shares with Scooby. It's a cool hub with some fun references to the show, giving Shaggy a 4 out of 10 for content. Though judging from the campaign level we got, it really is a shame we didn't get more content from Scooby-Doo. Shaggy's minifig is another high point for me. It's a great looking fig that translates the character into Lego form really well. He's got some nice dual molded arms, but it's worth noting the fig also appeared in a line of Scooby-Doo sets, making it non-exclusive to Dimensions. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10 for minifigure score. In terms of representation, Shaggy does really well. Matthew Lillard voices Shaggy for Dimensions, returning from some notable Scooby-Doo projects, and lending a real air of legitimacy to Shaggy's appearance here in Dimensions. On top of that, Shaggy is animated really well, feeling a lot like the animation style from the old show. With that in mind, Shaggy gets a 10 out of 10 for representation. I do really like using Shaggy. His animations when he glides are a particular highlight, and although he's a little light on the content and ability sides of things, he's quite fun to use. So I'm gonna give Shaggy a 6 out of 10 for fun. This means altogether Shaggy has 30 points, landing him square in the A tier. Scooby is the other half of Shaggy's team pack, bringing with him many of the same qualities that Shaggy scored highly on. But how is he different and how does he stand out? Let's take a look. For abilities, Scooby is essentially the same as Shaggy but with a little extra. He shares tracking, stealth and glide, but also has digging and diving, with the latter two abilities making a lot of sense considering Scooby is a dog. This does put him a bit above Shaggy for usefulness, landing him a 6 out of 10. Content-wise, Scooby shares the same hub world as Shaggy, meaning it's the same score, a 4 out of 10. Scoob's minifigure is really cool, though according to Brickset it's not even considered to be a minifigure. Still, that technicality aside, what we have is very good. Every part is completely custom made for Scooby, though he was used in another set for the Scooby-Doo theme, meaning he's not exclusive for Dimensions. I'll give Scoob a 6 out of 10. Scooby-Doo's original voice actor Frank Welker returns for Dimensions. This is another case of a very faithful translation into Dimensions, giving Scoob a 10 out of 10. Scoob-Doo is another character with just a good game feel to him. His animations, funny quotes, and somewhat useful abilities make him a very fun time. It's also the novelty of playing as a cartoon dog that makes him stand out from other characters in the game. Scooby gets an 8 for fun score. Adding up Scooby's points puts him at 34 out of 50, which means he is an A tier character. The only thing that could have improved his score would be some more actual content. This is the part where I'd love to say something interesting about the ACU Trooper, but funnily enough, the most interesting thing about him is that he's a literal nobody. He's the equivalent of a stormtrooper with no real face or identity to him, so let's see how he does. ACU only has 2 abilities. These are Illumination, which is a very common and rarely used ability, plus Electricity, which is the strongest thing he has going for him. This ability is somewhat on the rare side, being one of only 4 characters in the game with this power. Unfortunately, this isn't enough to entirely save him from his fate of 3 out of 10 for usefulness. The ACU Trooper has access to the Jurassic World hub, which, unfortunately, like many of the Year 1 hubs, feels extremely empty, suffering for many of the same reasons the DC hub suffered, being that by this point, LEGO had already done a Jurassic World LEGO game, which had a far livelier version of this hub area. It also doesn't help that this content is also shared with Owen, meaning ACU brings no exclusive content with him. I'll give ACU a 3 out of 10 for content. Looking at ACU's minifigure, we have a cool looking fig overall. The hat and body armor are nice pieces, however this figure has had multiple variants in the Jurassic World theme, meaning whilst this configuration is exclusive to Dimensions, very similar figs with many of the same pieces do exist. In my mind, this is a very common character, with a 2 out of 10 for minifigure. ACU is unique in the sense he's the most faceless guy in the game, but there's nothing here in terms of character, making him a 0 out of 10 for representation. It's kind of a shame because they had a blank slate to play with for Dimensions, but they really don't do anything with it. However, I do have to mention that the GoblinBricks community have made multiple memes out of this guy during our live streams, and we did enjoy putting 7 of them on the toy pad, so he gets a bonus point, leaving ACU at a 1 out of 10 for fun. Honestly, we've all said this before, but this is a wasted slot. There are so many other Jurassic World characters that could have taken this spot. All in all, the ACU Trooper unfortunately ends things with a pitiful 9 points, leaving him in the D tier. Up next, the star of the Jurassic World trilogy, we have Owen Grady, the raptor-taming, motorcycle-riding dino guy. Will he fare better than the ACU trooper? Probably. Let's find out. Owen is pretty handy with his knife, having the vine cut ability, which isn't very common. He can also do tracking, stealth, and target, which are all common abilities, leaving him with a total of 4 altogether. Owen shares the same hub with the ACU trooper, meaning once again, it's not a great deal of content, leaving him at a 3 out of 10 for his content score. The Owen Grady minifigure we got for Dimensions was seen in one other set in the Jurassic World theme, meaning that whilst it's not exclusive, it's also not abundantly common either. It's not the best looking one I've seen, and honestly, I don't like it too much. This is a 2 out of 10 minifigure. Thankfully, one of Owen's saving graces is that Chris Pratt returned from the movie to voice him for Dimensions, bringing a bunch of original voice work to the game, with some really cool and fun interactions.
There is something awfully familiar about you, Mr. Dino Wrangler Man. I feel like we've met before.
This is a 10 out of 10 for representation, and about as authentic as it can get. Owen isn't the worst character to play as, not by a long shot, but outside of his handy vine cutting ability and a few funny references, he's not that fun to play as either. He's pretty much middle of the road for me, so I'll give Owen a 4 out of 10 for fun. Owen Grady's points add up to a total of 23, giving him a B tier placement. This isn't awful, but it's not great either, with the only standout from Owen literally being the vine cut ability. Our first Ninjago character in the ranking is Jay the Lightning Ninja. Now, right out the gate, I'm not really a Ninjago guy, but I've done my best to look into the characters to make sure they're given a fair shake. So let's see how our first ninja holds up when it comes to points. Jay has 6 abilities to his name, with Spinjitzu, which is something that he shares with every other Ninjago character, Fix-It and Intelligence, both being uncommon abilities. Then he also has Stealth and Acrobatics, which are his most common abilities. But his one standout is that he also has Electricity, which is a fairly rare ability. His movement speed, double jump, and decent range of abilities make Jay fairly useful overall, landing him a 7 out of 10 in usefulness. Unfortunately, Jay doesn't bring any unique content with him, sharing the Ninjago hub world with the rest of the Ninjago cast, meaning it's shared with 6 other characters. However, the Ninjago hub is a decent one, and that means Jay gets a 3 out of 10 for content. Jay, like many of the Ninjago characters in Dimensions, is a reuse from the 2015 Tournament of Elements wave, wearing his jungle robe appearance. Whilst this is in no way exclusive or unique to Dimensions, I think it's a very strong minifigure with a cool design. 6 out of 10. So, for representation, the main Ninjago TV cast were unable to record for Dimensions due to union-related issues in voice acting. This means a backup voice cast was used for every single Ninjago character, with parts of the cast reprising their roles from the previous Ninjago video games. In Jay's case, he is voiced by a returning actor, Mick Wingert, who previously played Jay in the Ninjago Nindroids game for 3DS and Vita. Excusing the weird voice acting issues, they did manage to get someone that had previously played the character, though it wasn't the definitive voice for Jay. This means I will give representation a 5 out of 10, a score many of the Ninjago cast will share for the sake of fairness. Overall, I really liked playing as Jay. His movement options give him a good game feel, and it's really fun sprinting around the place, with his animations feeling very nimble and ninja-like. He's got a good range of abilities, and I think he stands out enough for a 7 out of 10 in fun. All in all, Jay ends up with 28 points and the B tier. There's no real complaints for Jay, he works great. Though he'd have a much higher score if he didn't share his content and many of his abilities with so many other characters. Still, on his own merits, he's a solid character all round. Nia, is a character from Ninjago that I was completely unfamiliar with until playing Dimensions. She's the only female rep for the franchise in the game and takes more of a samurai aesthetic, but will she stand out from the crowd or fade away into the background? Let's take a look. Nia has 5 total abilities with Spinjitzu, Acrobat, Stealth, Fix-It, and Laser Deflector. Now, on her own merits, these are solid abilities, all of which being generally useful in their own situations. Though I do find it interesting she's got many of the same, and somehow one less ability than Jay, but I'll give her a 6 out of 10 for usefulness. Once again, Nia shares access to the Ninjago hub with the rest of the cast, meaning she gets a 3 out of 10 for content, the same score I gave to Jay. Nia's minifigure for Dimensions also comes from the 2015 Tournament of Elements wave, meaning again it's not exclusive. However, the fig itself is still very striking and unique amongst the rest of the cast for both Ninjago and Dimensions. I like it a lot, meaning I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 for minifigure score. Nia's voice situation mirrors Jay's perfectly, once again having her voice actor Eliza Schneider return from the Nindroids 3DS and Vita game. Because the situation is the same, so too is the score, giving her a 5 out of 10. Nia's fun factor is just about as good as Jay's. She's nimble, quick, animated well, and feels like what you'd expect for a character from Ninjago. I enjoy using her just as much as any of the other ninjas, meaning she also gets a 7 for fun. All things considered, Nia ends up with a respectable 27 points, landing her next to Jay in the B tier. She's fun to play as, has a lot of cool abilities, and feels good to control. She is just missing that one signature ability or element to put her above other Ninjago characters. Continuing our Ninjago streak, up next is Zane, who from what I understand is a robot ninja man. That's very cool on paper, but does he deliver the goods when it comes to the gameplay? Let's find out. Zane has access to 6 main abilities, though due to a rare circumstance, there's an argument to be made that he has 7. Zane's abilities are Acrobat, Stealth, Boomerang, Dive, X-Ray Vision, and Spin Jitsu. However, he is the only member of the Ninjago cast who can perform Spin Jitsu underwater, meaning many people consider this its own ability.
This is editing Goblin right now, and it turns out that underwater spin jitsu doesn't exist. The ability is theoretically possible, and if it was possible, Zane could definitely do it, but there's nowhere in the game where you need to perform spin jitsu underwater. So, yeah, thanks LEGO Dimensions Wiki.
Overall, this is a really good level of versatility, and Zane gets an 8 for usefulness due to how often he ends up being helpful. Once again, Zane grants access to the Ninjago hub, which is shared with 6 others, meaning it's not exclusive and that he gets a 3 out of 10 for content. Zane's minifigure is taken from the Ninjago Tournament of Elements wave, being featured in one set outside of Dimensions. I really dig this minifigure, with the hood and shoulder armor giving him a more unique silhouette against his team. The color is cool, and overall, this is a high quality fig. Zane gets a 7 out of 10. Yuri Lowenthal, famous for playing PS5 Spider-Man, is the voice actor for Zane in Dimensions, returning from the Nindroids 3DS title. We've already been over this situation twice now for Jay and Nia, so once again, this is the same score, a 5 out of 10 for representation. In terms of fun, I think Zane is on the same level as Nia and Jay for many of the same reasons, involving animations and fluidity. Though overall, I think I prefer using Zane. He gets a 7 out of 10 for fun. Zane's total score is 30 points, placing him in the A tier, arguably the best of the Ninjago characters we've seen so far, one of the cheaper and more useful characters from year 1 in today's market, and a firm favourite of mine. Up next, we have the main character of the LEGO movie, the second character on this list played by Chris Pratt, and one of the most iconic LEGO characters out there. But how does Emmett Brakowski do in the rankings? Time to find out. Emmett has 3 main abilities, with Master Builder, Fix It, and Drill. Drill is by far the rarest of Emmett's abilities, and one of the more notable things about him here in Dimensions. It's unfortunately a somewhat simple case, with Emmett ending up with a 3 out of 10 for usefulness. Like Wildstyle, Emmett shares access to the LEGO Movie Hub world with the rest of the cast, meaning he has no exclusive content to speak of. He also gets a 3 out of 10 for content. In terms of minifigures, Emmett looks exactly as he should, though that's no surprise considering the character is meant to be a LEGO figure. Not only that, but he's very similar to other versions that were abundantly common in LEGO movie sets. It's a nice figure, but nothing really notable, giving Emmett a 2 out of 10. I guess Chris Pratt either really liked the LEGO Dimensions paycheck, or TT scored a 2-for-1 deal, because he returns to voice Emmett for the game alongside also playing Owen. Once again, this is a really authentic feeling character, and alongside the way he's animated to look like the LEGO movie, I think Emmett's representation gets a 10. The one place I really feel Emmett falls down in is fun. It's great that he's got the voice and a fairly rare ability, but besides that, he's really nothing special. I'm gonna give Emmett a 1 out of 10 for fun. Adding things up, Emmett has 19 points in total, making him a C tier character. Though it's worth noting that Chris Pratt returning to voice the character is responsible for more than half of his total score, with that and the dig ability being the only thing saving him from the D tier. Our next entry is another character from the LEGO movie, but strangely not the only LEGO police officer in LEGO Dimensions. Either way, we're gonna take a look at Bad Cop. Bad Cop has 3 abilities with Laser, Target, and Relic Detector. The most notable of the 3 is the Relic Detector, given that only 3 characters possess this ability in the entire game. However, one of those 3 is Wild Style, also from the LEGO Movie and the Starter Pack, meaning Bad Cop, despite technically having one of the rarest abilities in the game, still feels redundant in terms of what he can do. I'm also only just realizing that Bad Cop doesn't even have the Master Builder ability. This is a 3 out of 10 for usefulness. Bad Cop shares the same LEGO Movie hub with Emmett and Wild Style, plus 2 other characters we haven't gotten to yet, meaning he shares the same score for the same reasons, a 3 out of 10 for content. Now, when it comes to minifigures, Bad Cop is in a bit of a weird spot. Unlike Emmett and Wild Style, he's not very common at all, only having 6 appearances when you include his Dimensions spot. Though, unfortunately, despite having a unique face print to set him aside from other variants, I don't find much to like about this minifigure. I'll give Bad Cop a 2 out of 10 for minifigure. Now, where Bad Cop really falls flat is the same category where Wild Style and Emmett stood tall: representation. Bad Cop uses archived audio because Liam Neeson was unavailable to reprise his role.
We have got to find that piece.
Unfortunately, creating a weird exception amongst the LEGO Movie cast, being the only one from the film not to return for LEGO Dimensions.
That's not my fault.
Not only do I find the use of archived audio lazy in a game about crossovers and interactions, but also the inconsistency it creates for the LEGO Movie franchise, which leaves Bad Cop with a 1 out of 10 for representation. This is literally the bare minimum. When taking everything into account about Bad Cop, there's very little to enjoy. He feels like the same level as the ACU Trooper in a lot of ways. One decent ability, not much else, and a lack of characterization. I'm giving Bad Cop a 0 for fun. I never use him, he's not fun to play as, and if I need the Relic Detector or access to the LEGO Movie Hub World, then I'll just use Wild Style, who again, you get in the Starter Pack. With everything considered, Bad Cop ends on a total score of 9 points, putting him firmly in the D tier. He's one of the worst characters in every category, easily being the weakest from the LEGO Movie. Our next character, Benny, is another rep from the LEGO Movie franchise, which has been very up and down so far. So, can Benny overcome the mediocrity of Emmett and Bad Cop? Let's find out. Benny has a decent number of abilities, with 6 in total, making him the most useful of the LEGO Movie cast so far. He has Hacking, Sonar Smash, Master Build, Target, Technology, and Glide. As an astronaut, Benny is a generally good answer for most tech-related issues, really only missing Fix-It, but leaving him with a respectable 5 out of 10 for usefulness. Like his castmates, Benny shares access to the LEGO Movie Hub World, giving him a 3 out of 10 for content. Benny's minifigure is a straight-up carbon copy from the LEGO Movie theme, being used in 2 sets outside of Dimensions. Though there's a lot of history and reference in his fig, being a tribute to the classic space theme, this charm alone ups Benny's minifigure score to a 6 out of 10. Thankfully, Benny's voice actor Charlie Day returns to Dimensions to reprise his role. Though some people might find Benny's comedy a little one-note with his space obsession, this performance is 100% faithful and a perfect representation of Benny. Once again, his animations are all stylized to be the same as the LEGO Movie. 10 out of 10. Though he's not quite the tip-top that Dimensions has to offer, there's plenty to love about playing as Benny, and overall I find him really enjoyable. I'd give him a solid 7 out of 10 when it comes to fun. Benny ends up with a really solid score of 30 points. This just about puts him in the A tier. He's fun to play as, pretty useful by Year 1 standards, and he's represented perfectly when it comes to LEGO Dimensions. Moving back to the world of DC Comics, we have Cyborg. Some of you may already know there are a ton of DC characters in LEGO Dimensions, so let's find out if Cyborg has what it takes to stand out from the pack. Cyborg's abilities make one hell of a first impression, with 6 in total. We've got Laser, Dive, Super Strength, Target, Big Transform, and Technology. Similar to Zane from Ninjago, who could do Underwater Spin Jitsu, Cyborg also has a kind of 7th ability, because by combining Dive and Technology, Cyborg can do underwater technology puzzles. sharing this ability only with the Cyberman. And no, I don't think they're related. Taking things a step further, Cyborg also has an alternative variant with his own abilities, animations, and voice lines. This being his variant from Teen Titans Go, meaning he also has access to flight and heart regen abilities, leaving the total at 9 unique abilities between the two cyborgs. This gives Cyborg a score of 8 out of 10 for usefulness. Getting the obvious out of the way, Cyborg can access the DC Comics hub world that is shared with loads of other DC characters. Thanks to his somewhat unique 2-for-1 character dynamic, Cyborg gets a 5 out of 10 for content. Cyborg's minifigure is based on his New 52 Comics design. It's not exclusive by any means, being used in a LEGO DC set also from 2015. However, it's also an absolutely sick looking minifigure. We've got plenty of detailing on the torso and legs, plus an exclusive headpiece that gives him a unique silhouette. I give Cyborg a 7 out of 10 for his minifigure. When it comes down to how Cyborg is represented, there's really two Cyborgs to talk about. The default Cyborg from DC Comics is played by Bumper Robinson, who himself has voiced the character in previous LEGO games and some animations. The other, and in my opinion, superior Cyborg from Teen Titans Go is voiced by Kari Payton, returning from the Teen Titans show. Strangely enough, this might make Cyborg one of the best represented characters in the game, being that he has 2 returning voice actors who have each played him in multiple projects. This is a 10 out of 10 for representation. Overall, I think Cyborg has it all. He's got 2 distinct variants with their own abilities, their own voice lines, and their own animations. He's got a transformation, he's versatile, and if you don't like one of the Cyborgs, you'll probably like the other one. He's a unique case in so many ways, and one of the best characters to play as in LEGO Dimensions. Cyborg gets an 8 out of 10 for fun. When adding up all of Cyborg's scores, he ends up with 38 points and a position in the high A tier, missing out on the S tier by a mere 2 points. This is an excellent character with a lot of utility and plenty of exclusive content outside of his shared hub world. Up next, we have another DC character, and arguably one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. Let's take a look at how well Wonder Woman stacks up against the competition. Wonder Woman starts off really strong with a total of 9 abilities. She has Flight, Boomerang, Dive, Invulnerability, Mind Control, Grapple, Laser Deflector, and Super Strength. Whilst some of those abilities aren't exactly rare, for a Year 1 character especially, there's a lot in a single place. Overall, she's super useful, getting an 8 out of 10 in usefulness. Wonder Woman's only content in the game, however, is the DC hub world, which we've previously established is shared with a ton of characters, and isn't too great. This is a 2 out of 10 for content. When it comes to minifigures, Wonder Woman's fig is a reuse from a DC set in 2012. Whilst it's not exclusive, it is solid and does a good job portraying the classic Wonder Woman costume. There's not a whole lot else to say, but I'd give this one a 5 out of 10. Wonder Woman is voiced by Laura Bailey in LEGO Dimensions, returning to the role from other LEGO games. But despite this fact, and similar to how I felt regarding Troy Baker with Batman, I wish they got Susan Eisenberg from Justice League. There's nothing wrong with Bailey's performance, and it's great they used a returning voice actor. There's just something about it that feels less authentic to me. So I'm gonna give Wonder Woman a 4 out of 10 for representation. I'd honestly say Wonder Woman is a solid character, and there are no glaring issues when it comes to playing as her. Though they do play the Wonder Woman theme song every single time she takes flight, which gets real annoying real quick, turning something that would have contributed to her representation points into something that detracts from her fun points. I'll give Wonder Woman a 6 out of 10 for fun. Altogether, Wonder Woman comes out with 25 points, landing her in the B tier. Remember, B isn't bad, it's middle of the road, and this ranking system is designed to look at more than just how many abilities a character has in-game. Up next, we have the trio from LEGO Chima, starting with Eris. Once again, I'm not super familiar with the theme, but Chima does seem to have some very striking minifigure designs. And hey, I'm all about trying new things. Let's see how well Eris fares in the ranking system. Kicking things off, Eris has a total of 4 abilities with mixed results. She's got Flight, Super Strength, Target, and Chi, with Chi being her key ability that she also shares with her fellow castmates from Chima. Meaning, whilst Eris doesn't have an exclusive ability to speak of, she is one of only 3 characters capable of using Chi, though ultimately I give Eris a 4 out of 10 for abilities. Content-wise, Eris also shares access to the Legends of Chima hub world with both Laval and Krager, meaning she doesn't possess any exclusive content herself. And I'll say, the Chima hub world is one of the better Year 1 hub worlds, but it still suffers from many of the same problems. Dimensions. This is a 4 out of 10 for content. In terms of minifigures, Eris makes quite an impression. Her custom headpiece is very cool, her wings give her a very well-defined silhouette, and her weapon and armor pieces also look really nice. Though she might seem similar to other variants from the Chima LEGO theme, this version of Eris is exclusive to LEGO Dimensions, landing her a 6 out of 10 for minifigure score. When it comes to representation, the Chima cast were completely replaced from their TV show for LEGO Dimensions, with Eris being voiced by Julie Whitner instead of her usual actress, Bethany Brown. From what I could find, Julie Whitner hadn't played Eris before or since appearing in Dimensions, meaning for representation I will give Eris a 2 out of 10, as although the actor isn't really very authentic to the role, it's still better than nothing and still better than using archived audio. I do like using Eris, though her main draw is obviously the Chi ability, but she's lacking a real standout ability to give her that edge, meaning I'll give her a 2 out of 10 here. Altogether, Eris ends up with 18 points, landing her in the C tier, which feels about right. Though she has a very nice minifigure and a somewhat rare ability, she doesn't have much going for her otherwise. Up next, we have Kragger, who might be one of my favourite looking LEGO characters ever made. Hence why I now own a giant pen of him that I exclusively use for important paperwork and life decisions. But with this weird bias put aside, how does Kragger hold up in LEGO Dimensions? Can he overcome the mediocrity that held back Eris? Let's find out. In terms of what he can do, Kragger has a total of 4 abilities. He's got Super Strength, Hazard Protection, Dive, and Chi. He can combine diving with Chi to become the only character in the game capable of underwater Chi, which is essentially the same thing as having a 5th ability. This is something that really makes him stand out from his castmates in the Chima theme, and gives him a slight edge and unique utility. So with that in mind, Kragger gets a 5 for usefulness. Content-wise, Kragger is exactly the same as Eris, sharing access to the Chima hub world with both her and Laval, meaning he gets the same score of 4 out of 10 for content. For his minifigure, Kragger is again in a very similar position to Eris, given that he has some amazing piece usage to give him his distinct look, with the crocodile headpiece, the weapon piece, and the armor piece lending to a very unique looking minifigure. He's also an exclusive variant just for LEGO Dimensions, landing Kragger with a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. Kragger is also in the same boat when it comes to representation, once again with the Chima cast being replaced by new voice actors for Dimensions. In Dimensions, Kragger is voiced by John Gegenhuber as opposed to his usual actor, David Attar. Once again, it appears as though John only voiced Kragger the one time for Dimensions, meaning Kragger gets a 2 out of 10 for representation. Moving into the fun category, Kragger is very basic, which in itself isn't always a bad thing. But besides having the underwater unique Chi ability, there's no real reason to pick him in particular given his lack of unique content. Kragger is essentially the same as Eris in-game, just trading flight for swimming. So he gets the same score as his bird friend, a 2 out of 10. Adding up his score, Kragger has a respectable 19 points, giving him a 1-point lead on Eris for his underwater Chi, landing him directly next to her in the C tier. This is one of the figures that surprised me when ranking these characters, given my personal love for Kragger, but it also proves that, in a way, the system is working, eliminating as much of my personal bias as possible. Now we're on to Laval, the final entry from Chima, and so far we've seen both his friends struggle to break free of the C tier. Can the leading lion rise above his animal accomplices? Let's take a look and find out. Right out the gate, Laval is actually the Chima character with the most abilities on paper, having 5 altogether. He can do Super Strength, Acrobatics, Laser Deflector, Sonar Smash, and of course, Chi. Whilst Eris got a 4 for being basic, and Kragger got a 5 for his unique situation with underwater Chi, Laval doesn't feel any better than the others. He's still very basic, and even though he has one more ability, he lacks a unique mode of movement. Eris could fly, Kragger could dive, Laval can walk. This to me subsidizes the extra point I might have given him otherwise, landing him a 4 out of 10 for usefulness. Laval is the final member of the Chima trio, meaning he too only gives access to the Chima hub world, naturally giving him the same score as his friends. 4 out of 10 because there's nothing exclusive. As with his Chima friends, Laval's strongest suit in my opinion is his minifigure. He's got a lot of unique pieces that really reflect his animal design, with his head, weapon and armor pieces being the highlight. This is also an exclusive variant variant of Laval for LEGO Dimensions, so he too gets a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. Once more, Chima's cast was replaced for Dimensions, so Laval was voiced by Robert Webb instead of his main actor, Scott Shantz. This leaves Laval with the same score as the others, 2 out of 10. When it comes to fun, I think my earlier point about his movement options really does hold Laval back. It feels like there's no reason to pick him for Chi over the others. Laval is easily the least fun of the Chima trio, giving him a 2 out of 10. Laval's total score adds up to 18 points, placing him next to his friends in the C tier, leaving Kragger the best of the franchise with a single point lead on both Laval and Eris. Though honestly, they all play very similarly overall. Moving on, up next we have the remaining 3 characters from the Lord of the Rings franchise. With Gandalf being disappointingly basic, how will the rest of them fare? Starting with Gollum, let's find out. They say you should never judge a book by its cover, but then again, I've never read Lord of the Rings, and Gollum doesn't look like he'd be capable of much, which surprised me because he's got 5 main abilities with some interesting twists on them. He's got Acrobatics, Boomerang, Mini Access, Silver Blow Up, and Dive. You might know where this is going. Once again, having Dive means Gollum can do Boomerang, Mini Access, and Silver Blow Up underwater. This essentially adds on 3 abilities to Gollum's moveset, giving him some interesting underwater utility, which I really didn't expect from looking at him. Gollum therefore gets a 7 for usefulness. Gollum shares access to the Lord of the Rings hub world with Gandalf, Gimli, and Legolas. This once again means he has no exclusive content of his own to speak of, giving him a 3 out of 10 in content. When it comes to minifigures, Gollum stands out from the crowd, or crouches out from the crowd, I guess. His minifigure is shared with some Lord of the Rings sets, but man, it cuts a unique silhouette for sure. He is the closest thing to a Lego Goblin in this game, and I gotta say, I dig the vibe. I'll give Gollum a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. Now, for representation, Andy Serkis was unavailable for LEGO Dimensions, so they hired Liam O'Brien, who did play Gollum in the Shadow of Mordor video game a year before Dimensions released. So I will give Gollum's representation a 5 out of 10, because they tried to at least make it somewhat faithful to some element of the franchise.
Alan Horsett! Alan Horsett!
Whilst I haven't used Gollum a whole lot, he is super unique amongst the rest of the cast. I like that he uses a fish as a boomerang, I like that his abilities are consistent above and below water, and I think he fills a very unique void in the roster. He's more fun than I thought he would be, giving him a 5 out of 10 overall. With everything considered, Gollum ends up on 26 points and in the B tier, which is about middle of the pack and a clear leap over how basic Gandalf was. I wouldn't be shocked if I end up using Gollum a lot more often in future. Up next, we have Gimli the Dwarf. Continuing our look into Lord of the Rings. Getting into his abilities, Gimli falls short, and no, that's not a pun. He literally has 2 abilities, one being super strength and the other being mini access. This isn't a great start, 1 out of 10. Gimli has access to the Lord of the Rings hub world, along with the other 3 characters from the franchise, meaning once again he has no exclusive content, landing on a 3 out of 10, being the same score as his friends. Now, this Gimli fig is very similar to another one from the Lord of the Rings LEGO theme, but it is unique due to a printing difference, making it just about an exclusive variant to Dimensions. But other than that, the highlight of the fig is easily his beard. He gets a 3 out of 10 for minifigure. Unfortunately, when it comes to voice acting, Gimli used archived audio from the Lord of the Rings movies, making a weird divide in the franchise between himself and the 2 we've already looked at. You know how I feel about this and how it stifles interactions with the crossovers, leaving Gimli on a 1 out of 10 for representation. In terms of fun, Gimli somehow manages to feel like a letdown, even when standing next to Gandalf from the starter pack. There's nothing unique about him ability-wise, and when you see that he uses archived audio on top of that, I can't help but feel like he's a wasted slot. He adds literally nothing to the game, content or otherwise, and for that reason alone, I give Gimli a 0 for fun. Taking all of Gimli's points into account, he ends up on 8 points, putting him square in the D tier, where he will remain for the rest of time. Moving on, we're at Legolas, the last of the Lord of the Rings franchise in Dimensions. Let's find out where he ends up. For abilities, Legolas is an archer, naturally having the target ability. He's also very nimble with acrobatics and pole vault abilities, but interestingly enough, when the Year 2 update came out, he was also able to grind on rails, resulting in 3 very common abilities and 1 kinda situational one. This puts Legolas at a 3 out of 10 for usefulness. Once again, as with the other Lord of the Rings characters, Legolas gives access to the Lord of the Rings hub world, which is neither exclusive nor exciting when you consider the content was included with the starter pack. He shares their score for content with a 3 out of 10. Similarly to Gimli, this version of Legolas is very similar to ones used in the Lord of the Rings theme, but it is slightly different due to printing, which does technically mean he's a Dimensions exclusive, though not by much. I like his printing on his torso and legs, and I think they link up rather well, but for his minifigure, I will give Legolas a 3 out of 10. Legolas unfortunately follows Gimli with the use of archived audio, meaning that 50% of the Lord of the Rings characters in Dimensions don't have any special interactions with other characters. This is lazy and weirdly inconsistent with Gandalf and Gollum, who used backup voices to replace the actors from the films. Legolas gets a 1 out of 10 for representation. The one thing I can say I enjoy about Legolas is his movement speed and agility. This means he at least has one thing that's fun about him, though this alone is not enough to keep him on the toy pad for long. He gets a 2 out of 10 for fun. This means in total Legolas ends things on 12 points, barely making it into the C tier. He's not awful and far from the worst character in the game, or even in his own franchise, but he's nothing special either. Up next, solely representing the Wizard of Oz franchise, we have the Wicked Witch of the West, a character who is also the first boss fight in the story mode. How will she fare as a playable character? Was it wise to include a villain from such an old movie? Let's discuss and find out. The Witch is capable of a decent amount, with 6 main abilities consisting of Magic, Illumination, and Magical Shield, which were the only things that Gandalf could do, plus the addition of Silver Blow-Up, Mind Control, and Flight, meaning she is essentially a buffed up Gandalf. I like this a lot, so she gets a 6 out of 10 for usefulness. Moving on to content, as the sole character from her franchise, the Wicked Witch has exclusive access to the Wizard of Oz hub world, which itself is a very unique piece of content with some fun references to the movie. This gets her a 7 for content. This minifigure of Elphaba is a unique fig that for a while was exclusive to LEGO Dimensions, though it did then go on to get reused in the LEGO Batman movie sets 2 years later. It's a solid fig with some nice detailing from top to bottom. There's not much, if anything, they could have done better here, but with the fact that it didn't remain exclusive, I will give it a 6 out of 10.
It looks so pretty!
When it comes to the voice work and representation in Dimensions, the Wicked Witch has a substitute voice actress, with Courtney Taylor taking over the role from the original actress Margaret Hamilton.
Get away from my property! Whatever it is!
Though this is understandable given Hamilton had passed away 30 years prior to the game's release. Even though this is the only time Courtney Taylor voiced the role, I won't be docking points due to those circumstances. If anything, I'm happy they didn't reuse 30-plus-year-old archived audio. Slightly bumping up the score also is that the Wicked Witch will instantly die when touching water, which is amazing attention to detail and something that stands out when it comes to representation. So she gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Like I said before, I would say the Wicked Witch is essentially just a better version of Gandalf. She's got everything he can do, plus more. Plus flying is a solid mobility option, and overall, I'd say she's one of the better Year 1 characters in general. She's fun to run around as, plus I like her hub world a whole lot. So I'll give her a 6 out of 10 for fun. The Wicked Witch of the West ends up on a strong 31 points. This puts her in the A tier, which is about all you can hope for as a Year 1 Dimensions character. Her exclusive hub world, excellent minifigure, and a decent range of abilities makes her one of the more robust characters from the early days of LEGO Dimensions, literally replacing Gandalf from the same year. This also brings our coverage of LEGO Dimensions Wave 1 to a close. We're now moving into Wave 2, which as you can see is significantly smaller than Wave 1. Wave 2 was released on the 3rd of November in 2015, which was just over a month after the main game. Let's dive in and see how it holds up. Up next is one of the biggest icons of both British TV and the sci-fi genre, and a personal favourite of mine, the Doctor from Doctor Who. Let's see how the oncoming storm handles his time in LEGO Dimensions. Right out the gate, the Doctor has 6 main abilities, naturally being good with technology, hacking, fix-it, intelligence, sonar smash, and the biggest one, TARDIS access. Whilst inside the TARDIS, the Doctor can regenerate into, at the time, every single one of his incarnations from the show, something which also changes the interior of the time machine. Whilst I won't be awarding bonus points for the TARDIS being cool, it's noteworthy that the Doctor is the only one capable of interacting with it in this way. I'm going to be putting his usefulness at 8 out of 10 because the Doctor is the answer to every tech-related ability in the game. Content-wise, the Doctor is one of 2 characters who grant access to the Doctor Who hub world. but he also has exclusive access to the Doctor Who level pack, which in itself is one of the best levels in LEGO Dimensions and one of its strongest pieces of content. Then there's the argument to be made that he can transform into 12 other versions of himself, which all have their own animations and voice lines, something we'll touch upon again in representation. But these are something that you could class as extra content, so I'm going to give the Doctor a 10 for content. This minifigure of the Doctor is similar to one from a LEGO Ideas set, but based on a costume from a different season of the show. This means it is 100% exclusive to Dimensions, also making use of the sonic screwdriver piece, which I like a lot. I'd say this is an 8 out of 10 for minifigure. Peter Capaldi did a ton of original voice work for Dimensions, showing up in both the main story plus his own level pack, and even this funny trailer for the game.
Doctor?
Doctor?
In addition to this, the Doctor's other 12 forms all have their own animations and voice lines, though all of the bonus iterations do use archived audio, which is understandable given how 3 of the actors had already passed away by 2015. I don't think the inclusion of archived audio takes away from the fact that the current actor did a bunch of original content. If anything, the other 12 forms are a bonus and not an expectation. Come on, you can make William Hartnell meet Sonic the Hedgehog. This is bizarre. This means the Doctor gets a 10 for representation. You literally couldn't ask for more. Using the Doctor in-game is a lot of fun. He's got so much unique content and so many lovable characteristics. He feels like a perfect fit in the game, and they executed him with so much love and attention to detail. This is an 8 out of 10 for fun. All things considered, the Doctor ends up with 44 points and a place firmly in the S tier. Taking a brief detour back to Ninjago for a couple of characters, we have Cole up next. Cole is the black ninja who represents the earth element. Let's see if he stands out from his ninja clan or if he fades into the background. Cole has many of the abilities we've come to expect from a Ninjago character, with access to spin jitsu, acrobatics, stealth, laser deflector, and super strength. That makes 5 in total, with his strength being his signature ability amongst the other ninja. Unfortunately, super strength isn't quite on the level of exclusivity that Jay's lightning was, leaving Cole at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of abilities. He gets a 5 for usefulness. His content is the same story as the rest of Ninjago, with shared access to the Ninjago hub meaning nothing exclusive for Cole. He gets the same score as his friends with 3 out of 10, based simply on the sheer number of characters who can access this content. Cole's minifigure situation is also very familiar, once again being based on the Ninjago Tournament of Elements wave, appearing in his jungle robe that was used in one other set for the Ninjago theme. Whilst again it's not exclusive to Dimensions, it does look very cool and I think it has a lot of appeal. This is a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. Like the rest of the Ninjago cast, Cole's original voice actor was replaced with a stand-in from the Nindroids video game, though it's somewhat notable that this stand-in was Roger Craig Smith, also known for voicing Sonic, Ezio Auditore, and Chris Redfield. In the interest of fairness and keeping things equal, Cole's representation is a 5 out of 10, because whilst they couldn't get the original actor, they did still find a replacement with some experience in the role of Cole. By now, you know the story with Ninjago. They're all a ton of fun to run around as, with their movement and agility being their strongest suit. But Cole's unique trait being super strength is a bit of a flop, given just how many other characters have that ability here in LEGO Dimensions. But that doesn't stop the gameplay appeal of running around as a literal ninja from being awesome, even if there might be a few too many ninjas in the game. Cole gets a 7 out of 10 for fun. Cole's total points are 26 out of 50, placing him in the B tier next to many of his Ninjago brethren. As with many of his Ninjago brothers, he's not quite on Zane's level, but they all share enough traits with their minifigures, abilities, and representation that it kinda makes sense they'd end up together. Moving on, we have the 5th Ninjago character so far with Kai, the Fire Elemental Ninja. Kai's red outfit definitely stands out from the pack, but what about the ranking system? Let's see how he does. Kai is another ninja, so naturally he too has access to spin jitsu, acrobatics, stealth, and laser deflector. But his signature element is fire, so he can also melt ice. Huh. This means that Kai too has 5 abilities, which is about average for a Ninjago character. At this point, I don't feel he has anything here that helps him really stand out. With fire being such an awesome element, it's a shame it didn't translate well into the abilities of LEGO Dimensions, with melting ice being a pretty underwhelming way of portraying it, especially when so many other characters can just shoot laser beams and do the exact same thing. This leaves Kai with an average 5 out of 10 for usefulness, given that the rest of his abilities are on par with the ninjas and some somewhat useful. Once more, the Ninjago hub world is Kai's only content in the game, which, due to being shared so heavily among the Ninjago cast, nets Kai a meager 3 out of 10 for content. Minifigure wise, he's once again on the same level as his friends. This is yet another Tournament of Elements Ninjago fig with some nice printing and piece usage, but nothing exclusive to Dimensions. It's a cool looking fig that skates by with a 6 out of 10. Representation is the category where Kai finally has something different about him, though not for a good reason. Kai is one of only 2 Ninjago characters who have a further weird issue regarding their voiceover work. Whereas up until now all of the Ninjago cast and Dimensions were sourced from a Ninjago video game, Kai is using a completely new actor with no previous Ninjago credits, meaning you could argue he is not as faithfully represented as the others. I won't judge him too harshly for this, but it was worth a mention and I will dock a single point, leaving him at a 4 out of 10 for representation. Thankfully though, Kai is a Ninjago character, meaning at the very least he is fun to run around with for all the same reasons Jay, Zane, Nia and Cole were. Pure game feel and joy give Kai a 7 out of 10 for fun, though he is sorely lacking utility that may have helped push him higher. Kai's total score is 25 out of 50. This is literally a middle-of-the-road character who rightfully ends up in the B tier. He's Ninjago number 5 out of 7 on this list, so we'll get back to the other 2 later on. Taking a break from Ninjago and moving back to The Simpsons, we have Homer's son, Bart. This kid was so iconic that in the 90s he ended up on every bootleg t-shirt ever, and he even got his own album. And even today, he's still considered one of the most iconic cartoon characters of all time. These are high praises to live up to, so does he pull it off in LEGO Dimensions? Let's see. Bart has 2 main abilities to his name. These are Target with his iconic slingshot and Mini Access. And that's it. That's all they could come up with for the most iconic kid in cartoons. It's insane to me. This is a 2 out of 10 for usefulness, and part of me thinks even that's being generous, given how Gimli got a 1 out of 10 for having similar abilities. Bart's only content for Dimensions is access to the Simpsons hub world, which he shares with Homer and the next character on our list. I got into it a bit before in Homer's segment, but the Springfield hub is nothing special either. This is a 2 out of 10 for content. Bart's minifigure is probably his strongest aspect in the game, given it's essentially a toy of an iconic character. His custom molded head is nice, though the fig is in no way exclusive to Dimensions, having been previously used in Simpsons sets, and weirdly recently used in 2025 for the Icons Krusty Burger set. I'll give Bart a 4 out of 10 because the fig at least does a solid job representing his character. Now, stick with me here, but imagine for a second that you work at TT Games, and you've been given the green light to include one of animation's most important characters in your new LEGO video game. Imagine how confusing it is when it comes down the line that Fox refused to let Bart talk in the game. Yep, that's what actually happened according to a text file that is supposedly found in the game's code, though it's also very possible that TT simply did not want to pay for the license to Bart's voice. So, Bart doesn't talk. He doesn't have a voice actor in Dimensions, full stop. Yeah, the kid whose entire characterization is based on being a smart-mouth, prank-calling comedian is literally mute. My only question is why? Why even bother including him if he can't talk, and he only has 2 abilities? What was the point? This is the second 0 out of 10 for representation on this list, which puts him at the same level as the ACU Trooper, a literal faceless henchman. As much as I consider Bart one of my favourite characters of all time, he doesn't feel like Bart here. It comes off to me like Dimensions thought they could sell this pack based sheerly on the minifigure alone, knowing they already had the Simpsons hub made for Homer. Bart is a spot filler, plain and simple. 0 out of 10 for fun, and again, a pointless inclusion. Altogether, Bart has a grand total of 8 points. This is a D tier character if there ever was one, and half the points he earned literally came from having a good minifigure. The word disappointing doesn't even begin to cover it. Krusty is both one of 2 confirmed clowns in Dimensions, with the jury still being out on Beetlejuice, plus the 3rd and final Simpsons character on our list. Homer and Bart hardly set him a high bar, but let's see if Krusty has anything to say about that. Getting right into Krusty's abilities, as a clown you could give him pretty much anything and excuse it as one of his tricks. However, Dimensions only gave Krusty 3 abilities in total, all themed around water. He can spray water, clean hazards, and grow plants. Yikes. 2 out of 10. Once again, Krusty shares his Simpsons hub world with both Bart and Homer. So for the same reasons I said for Bart, Krusty's content is a 2 out of 10. Taking a look at Krusty's minifigure, there's a lot to love. It's on the same par of quality as the other Simpsons minifigs in Dimensions, but with great quality also comes a lack of exclusivity, at least as far as the Simpsons are concerned. However, in a somewhat unique twist of fate, Krusty was previously a CMF exclusive for the Simpsons, meaning he is the only minifigure on this list to have belonged to a CMF, a usually very exclusive club that rarely releases minifigures outside of their sets. With that one rare occurrence aside, I'll give Krusty a 5 out of 10 for minifigure. For Krusty's representation, I copied Homer's score exactly. This is because they are both voiced by the same guy, both through archived audio, which whilst I would usually give this kind of thing a 1, it is again one of the most iconic voices in animation. So I'll lean and give Krusty a 2 out of 10 for representation. I mean, hey, at least he talks, unlike Bart. Again, like I said for Homer, once the novelty of playing as a LEGO Simpsons character wears off, the laziness and lack of content really begins to shine through. This makes Krusty one of the least fun characters to use, landing him a 3 out of 10 for the fun category. On a complete side note, the most fun thing about Krusty I could find was his weird walk animation. This might be the most depressed LEGO minifigure I think I've ever seen. Krusty ends up with a total of only 14 points, leaving him dead in the C tier. Just taking a second, I think it's really disappointing how low The Simpsons scored in general. I remember being so hyped to see this in Dimensions, but one deeper look at how the franchise was handled will show you that very little love and very little care went into these amazing characters. Honestly, this might be the biggest miss in the entire game. Thankfully, Unikitty is next, who besides being the favourite character of one of our most iconic community members, yes Caillou, I'm talking about you, I don't really have much experience with Unikitty besides obliterating her on livestream thanks to a donation. This is our last entry from the LEGO movie, so let's take a look and see where she ends up on this list. They say cats always land on their feet, but Unikitty falls a little flat when it comes to abilities. She's got Big Transform, Target, Master Builder, and she's the first character on this list to have the Rainbow LEGO Objects ability. Wow, that name is a mouthful. With Master Build being shared across the whole LEGO movie cast, except for Bad Cop, I'll give her a 4 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, however, Unikitty shares the LEGO movie hub world with Emmett, Benny, Bad Cop, and Wildstyle, who again was in the starter pack, meaning she really lacks exclusive content, getting a 3 out of 10 in this category. Getting into the minifigure, Unikitty doesn't really have one. She's actually a fully buildable character, which is admittedly quite refreshing at this point, and something unique compared to the rest of the game's roster. Though there have been roughly 30 versions of Unikitty made for other LEGO sets, here in Dimensions she is an exclusive variant. I'll give this one a middle of the road score at 5 out of 10. Thankfully, unlike Bad Cop, who used archived audio, Unikitty sits with Benny, Emmett, and Wildstyle, using her original actress from the LEGO movie, Alison Brie. Brie also did some cool promotional work for the game, but again, with the LEGO movie characters all being animated in-game to reflect the animation style of the movie, this is an easy 10 out of 10 for representation. Faithful, fun, and the voice kids would expect to hear from the brick-built kitten herself. In terms of fun, I'm not the biggest Unikitty fan out there, as you know, but I do like her animations when she goes mad mode. Plus, her rainbow ability does make her somewhat unique in comparison to the other Year 1 characters. And though I admit she's pretty basic, she's fun enough to play as. 5 out of 10 for fun. Everything considered, this puts Unikitty at 27 points in the B tier, which to be honest feels like the best you could ask for. She's a Year 1 character from the LEGO movie, she's basic, but she represents her character well, and that's what kids would look for in Unikitty. And with that, we are now moving into Wave 3 of LEGO Dimensions. Wave 3 continued DC Comics, Ninjago, Doctor Who, and Back to the Future's representation, but also debuted the Ghostbusters level pack and franchise in LEGO Dimensions. Wave 3 was released on the 19th of January in 2016. So with 31 characters in the bag, let's see how Wave 3 holds up for LEGO Dimensions. Kicking off Wave 3, we have Peter Venkman from the classic Ghostbusters movies. He might not be afraid of no ghost, but will he be afraid of his tier placement? There's only one way to find out. Venkman starts off pretty strong, although on paper having only 4 abilities might seem limiting, 2 of them are fairly exclusive. with his Suspend Ghost ability and Ghost Puzzles ability being unique to him and only one other character. The other two more common abilities are Hazard Protection and Laser, which are more common with other characters in the game. This somewhat unique utility gives Venkman an impressive 6 out of 10 for usefulness, though it should be noted a future character will severely eclipse his role here in LEGO Dimensions. Getting into content, Peter Venkman includes access to the Ghostbusters hub world, which he shares with Slimer and Stay Puft, plus exclusive access to the Ghostbusters level pack, which takes you through parts of the original movie. The other significant tidbit for Venkman is that once you complete the level pack, you can then transform him into the other 3 members of the Ghostbusters. This is a cool bit of content in theory, but they're all pretty much identical. Interestingly, something I found whilst researching this video is that Venkman also has access to the Ghostbusters 2016 hub world upon completing the original level pack, essentially giving him access to 2 different hub worlds. Overall, I'd give Venkman a 7 out of 10 for content, given that both of his hubs aren't exclusive, plus the level pack wasn't one of my favourites. For his minifigure, Venkman is actually an exclusive variant of the character. Though he would also be included in 2 other Ghostbusters sets, they're all unique and distinct variants when it comes to minifigures. I really like the detailing on Venkman's suit. I love the Proton Pack, and I think it really does look like the character with some nice printing. I have no issues or critiques with this one. It's a strong 8 out of 10 minifig. Rather unfortunately, however, Bill Murray was probably too busy being old and grumpy somewhere, because Dimensions ended up using archived audio of his performance from the first movie. Look, I get why Bill Murray might not have wanted to do a LEGO game, but it feels like a substitute voice actor would have been the perfect answer to this problem, which would then allow Venkman to have more interactions with other characters. It also doesn't help matters that all 3 of the other Ghostbusters that are playable through Venkman also use archived audio. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Archived audio is one of the laziest solutions for a game like Dimensions, which is all about the crossovers and the interactions. Ultimately, this is a wasted opportunity, with the only worse outcome being complete silence, aka Bart Simpson. That said, Venkman gets a 1 out of 10 for the use of archived audio. I do like using Venkman. I think he's fun and his abilities are pretty unique to him, though once we get later into this list, he will be completely eclipsed by another Ghostbuster. But for now, he's fun enough and gets a 5 out of 10 in fun. This is for being useful, having the option to switch with the other Ghostbusters, and including an entire level pack. In total, Venkman has 27 points, which lands him in a position in the B tier. This isn't bad by any means, especially by year 1 standards, but for now at least, we're gonna let this ghost lie. Taking a brief detour back into the world of DC, we have the Joker and Harley team pack, and Harley is up first. Let's see if our first DC villain has what it takes to place in the higher tiers on our list. Looking at her abilities, Harley doesn't fare too well, only having access to acrobatics and super strength. Looking at it, both of those abilities are super common, having already appeared a bunch of times on the list, and we're not even halfway through yet. This is a 1 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Harley is the same story as our previous DC characters, sharing access to the DC hub world with a ton of other characters, including Batman from the starter pack. Yikes. I'll give Harley a 2 out of 10 for content. Harley's minifigure is a good depiction of her classic outfit that she wore during her initial appearance in Batman the Animated Series. This fig isn't exclusive, having already been used in a LEGO Batman set 3 years prior to Dimensions, but it's not a bad fig by any means. 4 out of 10. Here in Dimensions, Harley is voiced by her longtime voice actress Tara Strong, who also plays more characters that you'll see later in the video. Tara played Harley in many projects, including Arkham City, LEGO Batman 3, and the Injustice games. Though Tara isn't Harley's original voice actress, by this point Arlene Sorkin had retired from the role, making Tara Strong the new main voice of Harley moving forward. This saves Harley's score from being a complete washout, with 10 out of 10 for representation. In terms of fun, I've given Harley a single point, a 1 out of 10. This is because whilst being iconic to the Batman franchise and properly portrayed in game, she has little to no usage with abilities, and in a game that is bloated with DC characters, it's bizarre to me that they pick a character with nothing to add to the gameplay. Even just looking at other Batman villains, there's at least 10 better options that spring to mind than Harley Quinn. Altogether, Harley ends up with 18 points and a spot in the C tier. The majority of her score is based on her representation, thanks to having her main voice actor here in Dimensions. I don't love playing as her, and ultimately she feels like an unnecessary inclusion. A spot filler for a franchise that really didn't need filling. It's worth remembering that we never got the Flash, Green Lantern, or Martian Manhunter in Dimensions, but we got Harley Quinn with only 2 abilities. Yikes. Moving on to the other half of the team pack, how will the iconic Clown Prince of Crime do when it comes to our ratings? Can he beat Harley's score? Let's take a look and see how Joker played out in LEGO Dimensions. Right out the gate, Joker has 4 abilities, which is twice as many as his girlfriend. He's got Target, Grapple, Hazard Protection, and Electricity, with Electricity in particular being one of his more useful and rare abilities, though this isn't enough to save him from a 3 out of 10 for usefulness. Joker's content score is the exact same as Harley's for all of the same reasons. DC Hub World. Lots of characters have access. 2 out of 10, nothing exclusive to Joker. From what I can see, this version of Joker's minifigure is technically exclusive to LEGO Dimensions, though it's worth noting a very similar version with an extra facial expression appeared in a LEGO DC set the very same year. Looking at what we have here though, this is a decent fig, but nothing special and very generic by Joker standards. I don't love it personally, and I don't think it's the awesome fanfare the character deserved, and maybe could have got had they scrapped Harley Quinn. 3 out of 10. Joker is once again voiced by Christopher Corey Smith, who is returning to the role from LEGO Batman 2 and 3, meaning Joker is authentically portrayed by someone with experience in the role. Where I would normally be happy giving something like this a 10 given the authenticity, I think Joker is a special case, because many people will agree that when they see Joker, they expect Mark Hamill, the de facto voice of Joker. This results in the character here just feeling kind of generic and nothing notable. I had the same issues with Batman and Wonder Woman, and I know ultimately it's a preference, but these voice actors from the Timverse would eventually take over the roles again in LEGO DC supervillains. So I guess there's some validity to what I'm saying. With that in mind, I'll give Joker an 8 out of 10 for representation, for no other reason than not being the best Joker. When it comes to fun, the main thing letting Joker down is that he just doesn't feel like Joker to me. I don't just mean the voice or the minifigure either. He feels like he's just not capable of basic things that the character should be able to do, and in some cases, can do in other LEGO games. Why can't he blow up silver studs? Why can't he shoot water from his prank flower? Heck, even Krusty can do that. Literally all Joker is good for is shooting a gun and occasionally using electricity. This means to me, this is an ACU trooper with extra steps. Nothing more. 1 out of 10. I expected more from Joker. Adding up Joker's score, he ends up with 17 points and the C tier, being a single point behind Harley Quinn despite being slightly more useful. I think the thing that stings most about Joker is the missed potential. As a character, he has more claim to a spot in the roster than Harley, but mechanically and portrayal wise, he just feels like a complete missed opportunity. Such a letdown. Taking a brief pit stop with our penultimate Ninjago character, we have Sensei Wu, a man who to my understanding is the master splinter of the Ninjago ninjas, even if he does slightly resemble Raiden from Mortal Kombat. Let's see if this old dog has any new tricks or if he's another basic Ninjago character. Wu has a total of 5 main abilities, with the obvious Spin Jitsu, Stealth and Acrobat, plus Pole Vault and the ability to glide. Once again, like his ninja students, this makes Wu's arsenal primarily based around movement and Spin Jitsu, still failing to overtake Zane when it comes to utility, and similar to Cole and Kai, he's lacking a standout quality. I'm gonna give Wu a 4 out of 10 for usefulness, simply for failing to have anything special about him. Another shortfall for Wu that can't really be helped is his content score, with him once again sharing the Ninjago hub with 6 other castmates. This means he's got no exclusive content to his name, giving him the same score of 3 out of 10. It appears this version of Wu's minifigure was seen in 2 other Ninjago sets and a polybag. Other than the fact it is accurate and looks like the character, there's nothing notably special about this figure to me. It doesn't stand out from the others, it's not as cool as the ninja or samurai figs we've looked at for Ninjago, it's middle of the road at best, losing some points for a lack of notability and being significantly less exclusive than his pupils. This is a 3 out of 10 in my book. Wu is voiced by William Salyers, returning from his role in the Nindroids video game, but once again not being the main actor from the TV show. Though he does have original dialogue here in Dimensions, and again, this is preferable to using archived audio, and the actor is at least returning from something else in the franchise. 5 out of 10. When it comes to fun factor, it's worth remembering that Wu is a Ninjago character, and in terms of game feel and movement, he reflects that well. My main issue with using Wu is there's very little reason to pop him on the pad over any of the far superior looking ninjas. This isn't really Wu's fault as a character, but I'd honestly say he's a bit of a spot filler, and like many of his castmates, still fails to outshine Zane for utility. I just don't think he's as fun to use as the ninja, who each communicate their abilities and special uses much better through their designs. This is a 3 out of 10 for me. all in all, Wu ends up with a meager 18 points and a spot in the C tier. This is the lowest scoring Ninjago entry so far, with our last one yet to come. I know this might be sacrilege to a lot of you out there that grew up on Ninjago, and I know this is the LEGO equivalent of talking smack about Zordon or Master Splinter, but I just don't see the appeal in Wu for any of these categories. Let's hope the last entry does better, but for now we're taking a break from Ninjago once again. Moving back into Doctor Who, we have the Cyberman. Now, it's worth noting that as a character, this is essentially a faceless henchman in the same way the ACU Trooper was. But Cybermen have a lot of identity as villains in the Doctor Who mythos. Will his inclusion at least be mechanically sound? Or is this Tin Man in need of an upgrade? Let's see. Getting right into what he can do, the Cyberman is capable of many things in LEGO Dimensions, with a total of 7 abilities. This puts him way above average for year 1. He's got hacking, technology, X-ray, mind control, drone mazes, silver blow-up, and dive. I did mention it earlier, but Cyberman is also capable of doing underwater technology puzzles, technically giving him an 8th ability. Overall, I like to look at Cyberman as an ACU Trooper on steroids, being a great answer to most tech-related puzzles. The only one he's really missing is Fix It, otherwise being the full package. This meshes well with his design as a robot, so he gets a 7 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Cyberman has access to the Doctor Who hub world, a rare hub that he shares only with the Doctor himself. This means, due to the near-exclusive nature of this access, and the hub world being great, Cyberman gets a 6 out of 10 for content. Moving into minifigs, Cyberman has a completely exclusive figure made only for LEGO Dimensions, with a custom helmet and some excellent printing perfectly tying together this iteration of the dastardly Robo-Man. This is pretty much a perfect figure in my opinion, bringing us something rare, exclusive, and high quality all in one package. This is a 10 out of 10 for minifigure. For representation, whilst I admitted Cyberman was essentially a henchman in the same way as the ACU Trooper, the Cybermen also have a pre-established voice and sense of identity as a whole. This identity allowed Nick Briggs, who played the Cybermen on Doctor Who, to return for Dimensions and lend an extra layer of authenticity to the character. This is a situation where I fully expected them to use archived audio, but they didn't. This allows Cyberman to interact and take part in Dimensions the way every character should. 10 out of 10 for representation. When it comes to the fun factor, I think Cyberman does better than I originally expected, playing like a bit of an Iron Man clone of all things, just without flight. Still, thanks to being surprisingly versatile and having access to some good content, I think Cyberman deserves a 6 for fun. I just kinda wish he could fly. All things accounted for, Cyberman ends his segment with a total of 39 points, placing highly in the A tier. This is as much a shock to me as it is to you. I never expected a character with this status to place so high. But again, this system is designed to reward good minifigures and content as it is dealing with a toys to life product. With Cyberman having a good mix, he placed well. From Doctor Who to Doc Brown, we're back in the future. Other mentor characters like Wu and other people named Emmett didn't place too highly, but let's see if Dr. Emmett Brown has what it takes. For usefulness, Doc Brown has a total of 5 abilities. He's got hacking, technology, fix-it, intelligence, and drone mazes. Doc Brown isn't bad. This is a good mix of abilities, once again centered around his technical know-how. But many other characters on this list, like the Doctor, Cyborg, Zane, and Cyberman, can do these kinds of things with other utility on top of that. However, similarly to Marty McFly, Doc suffers from this ranking system somewhat due to not including vehicles, which they both use as time machines in the game. Meaning, to be fair, he gets a 5 out of 10, but had we included vehicles, he'd have placed higher than that. When it comes to content, Doc Brown is in a very similar situation to Cyberman. In the same way Cyberman was a fun pack character sharing a hub world with a level pack character, Doc Brown shares access to the Back to the Future hub with Marty McFly. However, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't love this hub world. 4 out of 10. Doc Brown's minifig is a bit of a weird one. In terms of design, it's solid and looks a lot like the character, though in terms of detail, it's very plain and basic. Exclusivity wise, it's technically exclusive to Dimensions, but its only difference from a variant in 2013 is the hairpiece, so it's not truly exclusive to the game. I also just don't love it as a figure, so I'll give it a 4 out of 10, ranking it just below average. Thankfully, Doc Brown gets a much needed boost with representation, thanks to the original actor Christopher Lloyd reprising his role 25 years after his last appearance in Back to the Future 3. Lloyd also did a few ads for the game, which are charming as hell. This is a 10 out of 10 perfect representation. You couldn't ask for better. Doc Brown is pretty useful overall, making him somewhat fun to have on the toy pad, but he is severely outclassed by other characters, namely Doctor Who. If we were including vehicles, he'd once again do better in this category, but with what we have here, it's a 4 out of 10 for fun. When adding up his points, Doc Brown ends up in the B tier with 27 points. Chances are he'd be somewhere in the mid A tier if we were including vehicles, but as things stand, this is a good score saved mostly by a returning Christopher Lloyd. We're now moving into Wave 4 of LEGO Dimensions, where things really started to slow down, with waves getting significantly smaller for a little while. Wave 4 is our smallest wave yet, with only 4 characters. Wave 4 came out on the 15th of March in 2016. With that in mind, let's get into our first Wave 4 character. Next up, we have a rather unique case. The Midway Arcade Gamer Kid is based entirely on nothing. This is, as far as I'm aware, the only character here who was made specifically for LEGO Dimensions. Will this give him special status, or will the lack of any source material harm him in the long run? Let's take a look and find out. When it comes to what the Gamer Kid can do, he's got a unique mechanic entirely exclusive to him. He can cycle through different energy drinks, gaining temporary access to unique powers for a short time. This is to say he has 5 abilities. He can use super strength, laser, stealth, invulnerability, and speed. Whilst these can be a bit cumbersome to switch between, they are still useful, still capable of solving puzzles, and very unique in execution. With that said, I'll give Gamer Kid a 5 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Gamer Kid is once again in a very unique position. He's got exclusive access to the Midway hub world, which is designed to celebrate classic Midway video games. Plus, he's also the sole character with access to the Midway level pack, which, again, sees you running through a bunch of different classic games. Now, full transparency, I'm not a huge fan of these. The games themselves are old and very clunky, but there are a ton of them. 23 to be exact. Now, whilst this would normally be a 10 out of 10, I do have to point out an awkward technicality. You need to use his arcade cabinet vehicle to access the games. So I'll dock 2 points for the reason I've given and leave Gamer Kid an 8 out of 10 for content. So when we're talking about minifigures, we usually have a lot to go on, whether it's other versions of the character made for other sets or themes, or how well they're approximated in LEGO form. But again, Gamer Kid is a wholly original character for Dimensions, with no prior source material, and therefore no prior minifigures. This does mean he's an exclusive, which is awesome, but we also need to take into account that this minifigure is basic as heck. There's one unique print on the torso and nothing else to it. I was really torn trying to assess this one, as Gamer Kid seems to defy every single category in the system one way or another. So I settled at 5 out of 10 because whilst he's exclusive and unique, he's also ironically very generic and very boring. 5 out of 10 seems fair to me. Weirdly enough, representation is the category you think Gamer Kid might suffer in, given that he has no prior voice actor to call upon. But TT Games decided to cook and hired Josh Keaton, the voice of Spectacular Spider-Man. This is a solid casting for a character that could have quite literally been played by anyone. In addition to that, we have to take into account that this guy is representing an entire company, Midway. He's in a unique spot because he is literally bringing more games into the game. So, being fair, I think Gamer Kid gets an 8 out of 10 for representation. So, with all that in mind, how fun is he to use? Well, that's somewhat of a loaded question. Yes, on paper, he's got a lot of unique properties riding on him, but at the same time, I don't like switching powers and how they run out over time. I don't like the Midway arcade games, and his level pack, whilst original and very unique compared to others, might be my least favourite level pack in the entire game. Keeping things fair, I think he's a 5 out of 10 for fun, being the second fastest character in the game, and as we'll eventually see on this list, he kinda gets outclassed by one Year 2 character in particular, but we'll get there later on. When all is said and done, the Gamer Kid ends up with a respectable 31 points, placing himself in the A tier. This again says to me that the ranking system is somewhat functional, given my personal bias would have slammed this guy down in C tier. But I'm happy to say that this unique approach to content and representation did pay off in the end. I still wish it was a Nintendo or Sega Kid though, not gonna lie. We've somehow washed up back at the shores of DC for our next character, the King of Atlantis, Aquaman. Although he's often the laughingstock of the Justice League for many reasons, he somehow beat Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter into LEGO Dimensions. So let's take a look and see how Aquaman does. Getting the obvious out of the way, Aquaman can dive, use water spray, growth, hazard cleaner, and in a somewhat exclusive fashion, he also has Atlantis Elemental. I say somewhat because at the time of release it was exclusive to Aquaman, before then being given out to 3 other characters in Year 2. Finally, Aquaman gets a bonus ability by combining dive and hazard cleaner. Aquaman gets a 5 out of 10 for usefulness. Getting back into content, Aquaman suffers from DC-itis, which at this point is so common I'm pretty sure a Skylander could sit on the toy pad and somehow get you into that level. It's become that bad. 2 out of 10 for content. Unfortunately, whilst Aquaman's minifigure does a good job depicting his new 52 outfit, he was in 2 other DC sets outside of Dimensions. And once again, without exclusivity and such a basic design, this is nothing special to me. 3 out of 10 for minifigure. Aquaman's voice actor from LEGO Batman 2, Brian Bloom, returns to voice him here in LEGO Dimensions, which gives some nice continuity between games. However, unlike Batman and Joker, there isn't really a de facto Aquaman voice in the same way. So I'll give Aquaman the benefit of the doubt and give him a 6 out of 10 for representation. Aquaman doesn't turn up on my toy pad too often, due sheerly to the fact his main draw is the Atlantis Elemental ability, which was just given to 3 vastly superior characters. Though again, there are certainly worse characters in Dimensions. This is a 3 out of 10 for fun factor. Altogether, Aquaman has a total score of 19 points, putting him in the C tier. And had his Atlantis ability remained exclusive to the only actual Atlantean in the game, he'd easily have made it to a B. From the Justice League's biggest joke to the Justice League's biggest bloke, we now have Superman, the last son of Krypton. Part of me is shocked it took this long to get him into the game, but he is a famously overpowered character. How will he translate into LEGO Dimensions? Superman's main utility in Dimensions is based purely around brute strength and movement. He's got flight and dive for excellent movement options, plus he's got super strength, laser, and invulnerability, making combat encounters an absolute breeze. Plus his X-ray vision and freeze breath are also useful in some puzzle situations. That's 7 abilities total. Superman is an easy 7 out of 10 for usefulness, especially when it comes to breezing through story levels. Content may as well be Superman's kryptonite, which I guess would just be, well, kryptonite. But either way, we've got yet another character with access to the DC hub world, which at this point is about as well guarded as leaving your spare key under the doormat. 2 out of 10. Superman's minifigure has shown up in a few LEGO DC sets over the years with some slight variances, meaning it's not exclusive by any means to LEGO Dimensions. However, there's something unbearably iconic about this costume in a way that Aquaman just wasn't. And even though you could argue it's generic in a good way, unlike Joker who just felt bland. This is Superman through and through, so I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. For representation, Superman is voiced by Travis Willingham, and boy can you tell. This is because Travis Willingham literally always sounds like Travis Willingham.
I don't know.
However, he is returning to the role from LEGO Batman 2 and 3, so there's some nice continuity there. You can all probably guess where I'm going with this, but I would have killed to have George Newbern reprise his role from Justice League. But beggars can't be choosers, and honestly, Travis does a decent Superman. The one thing that pushes this score above a 5 is that John Williams' iconic Superman theme plays whenever Superman takes flight, which is awesome. However, it also copyright strikes all of my live streams immediately. This is a 6 out of 10 for representation. Arguably, where Superman shines most is the fun factor. He's incredibly easy to use, he does everything you'd expect him to do, and he feels like a fitting tribute to both of his previous LEGO game appearances, and just the character at large. And I think his basic but long list of abilities really add to the fun factor. He's a 9 out of 10 for fun, and I'm not even the biggest Superman fan out there. This puts Kal-El at 30 points in total, placing him in the A tier. He's just lacking in a few areas that hold him back from S, even if he does wear the letter right there on his chest. Next on the list, we're going back to Ghostbusters for Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man. Stay Puft appeared as the boss of the Ghostbusters level pack, but also here as a playable character, so let's see what he can do. For abilities, Stay Puft has 3. Big Transform, Super Strength, and Hazard Protection. This means whilst he is good for putting on a show and fighting off enemies, he's not terribly useful when it comes to solving puzzles. 2 out of 10. Getting into content, Stay Puft has some unique utility as a member of the Ghostbusters franchise, because not only does he have access to the Ghostbusters Classic Hub world based on the 80s movie, but you can also use him to access the 2016 hub, which are 2 separate levels. This is fairly unique and not something many other characters can do, so he gets a 5 out of of 10 for content, as both hub worlds are shared content between the 4 Ghostbusters characters. Looking over his minifig, Stay Puft has a solid design. His custom molded headpiece is great and has some nice continuity into his torso print. The rest of the fig is pretty basic, but this does look like the character and is 100% exclusive to LEGO Dimensions. 8 out of 10. Representation is a weird category for Stay Puft, as the original voice used in the Ghostbusters movie was that of Bill Bryan, and by voice I of course mean a series of grunts and screams, which in themselves aren't really all that specific to the character. I say this is weird because Ghostbusters would then spawn some spin-off cartoons, in which Frank Welker, the voice of Scooby-Doo, played Stay Puft. Welker also returns as the character for Dimensions, meaning he's technically played Stay Puft more than the original actor. I'm gonna give the giant Marshmallow Man a 5 out of 10 in representation because it's technically a stand-in actor, even if acting is a strong word when it comes to the character. Whilst I don't exactly use Stay Puft all the time due to how simple he is, and his lack of any real ability, it's worth noting that it's a ton of fun going giant and running around in the game. His sheer destructiveness is his best quality, and I like that he can get me into 2 hub worlds. I'd say this is a 7 out of 10 for fun. When all is said and done, Puft ends up with a total of 27 points and B tier placement. He's nothing amazing though. Fortunately, a strong exclusive minifigure and some good fun factor save him from placing any lower. And we're already at Wave 5. Anyway, Wave 5 was released on May 10th of 2016 with only 3 characters, tying it for the smallest wave the game ever got. But it's also the final wave of Year 1. So let's blast through and finish off the first year of LEGO Dimensions. Up next is Bane, another Batman villain, and hopefully he has more to show for himself than Joker and Harley did earlier on. By now we're 8 DC characters deep into this list, with plenty more to go. Let's see how Bane turns out. When it gets down to it, Bane has a total of 3 abilities, making him very basic on paper. He's got the ability to transform into his big fig, which naturally includes super strength, and finally he has hazard protection. This is unfortunately basic this deep into the list, resulting in a 2 out of 10 for Bane's usefulness score. As you know by now, Bane is a member of DC, and as such has access to the DC Hub World, which is the most commonly accessed hub in the entire game. There's nothing else to Bane when it comes to content, so once again, this is a 2 out of 10 for content. Bane's minifigure is listed as being unique to Dimensions, but once again this is a technicality at best. The only difference I can see between Dimensions Bane and some other versions is that we get his backpack here in Dimensions, and that's literally the only difference. Being completely honest, whilst this minifigure is nice, the first thing that comes to mind is how disappointing it is that Bane wasn't a big fig. I know this seems ambitious given Dimensions pricing and the whole Toys to Life thing, but Bane isn't famous for being small. I do understand that in many versions of Batman, Bane transforms between the 2 sizes, but here in Dimensions he's lacking a specific or exclusive quality when it comes to minifigure. What we have is nice and technically exclusive, but it could have been way better. 5 out of 10. Bane's voice actor, the legendary Steve Blum, returns from LEGO Batman 2 to lend his voice for Dimensions. Much like I said for Aquaman, I don't really feel as though Bane has a definitive voice for things like this, which does put him at somewhat of a disadvantage in the category. So having someone of Blum's caliber is very welcome. Plus, given he voiced the character previously, this lands Bane a 5 out of 10 for representation. Had Blum been a more definitive recurring voice for the character, he may have scored higher. Bane's main draw for fun is that he can turn into a big fig and run around the map a lot faster than your average character. It's a lot of fun hulking out and smashing stuff up, similar to how I felt about playing as Stay Puft. But the lack of any real utility does hurt Bane's fun factor quite a bit for me, leaving him at a 5 out of 10. Bane's run ends on 19 points and a place in the C tier. He's unfortunately just too basic for his own good, even though he has a cool transformation. I feel like he's in a similar league to Joker and Harley, just kind of filling a spot on the roster with no real impact to the game at large. Sadly, he's mediocre at best. Hopping into our final character from the classic Ghostbusters theme, we have the green ghost, Slimer. He's an absolute oddball pick for sure, but let's dive into this and see what Slimer can really do. This might shock you, but Slimer is extremely capable, especially by Year 1 standards. He's got a total of 10 abilities that cover a wide range of problem solving. He's naturally got hazard protection, hazard cleaner, sonar smash, dive, boomerang, flying, illumination, mini access, slurp access, and complete invulnerability. My absolute favourite part about Slimer's boomerang is that it's a literal hot dog. This is arguably the funniest way to solve Batarang puzzles. Overall, Slimer gets a usefulness score of 8 out of 10, for being good at mobility both in the air and underwater, and having a good range of skills. For content, Slimer is in the exact same boat as Stay Puft, being able to access both Ghostbuster hub worlds, landing him the same score of 5 out of 10 for 2 non-exclusive pieces of content. Slimer's minifig, if you could even call it that, is another case where it's technically exclusive to Dimensions, but emphasis on the technically. He later got a reprint in a Ghostbusters set after Dimensions, which used the same printing but on a notably lighter shade of plastic. As for what we have here, this is such a bizarre looking fig with some nice printing and a hot dog accessory. I might be biased, but to me this is a 7 out of 10 minifigure, which may well have been a 10 had the character been fully exclusive to Dimensions. Representation is where things get weird for Slimer, as he's in a similar position to Stay Puft given that he speaks complete gibberish in his original appearance, and that he was voiced by the director of the movie, Ivan Reitman. Here in Dimensions, however, he's voiced by, you guessed it, Frank Welker, the same guy doing Scooby and Stay Puft. Funnily enough, Frank actually voiced Slimer in a Ghostbusters cartoon where they actually let him talk. So again, this is kind of weird, but for representation he'll score a 5 out of 10 for being a solid backup voice actor, which I'll remind you is way better than archived audio in a game about crossovers. I enjoy using Slimer for a bunch of reasons. His usefulness, he's funny to look at, he throws hot dogs at people, and a cool trait is how he possesses vehicles with a green ghostly tint instead of actually driving them. He's a bunch of fun, and I think he deserves a 7 out of 10 in the category. Slimer's total score is 32 points, which means he makes it to the A tier. Honestly, when I set out to make this video, this is the kind of result I never expected. But after doing the research, I think it's well deserved. Moving on, we're now at Lloyd from Ninjago. Lloyd is a special character on the list for a few reasons. 1, he's the last Ninjago character left to cover, and 2, he's the last Year 1 character left to cover. Will Lloyd rise above his ninja clan? Will Lloyd send Year 1 out with a bang? Let's take a look and find out. Right off the bat, if you've been paying attention, you could probably guess that Lloyd has 5 abilities. Say it with me: Spin Jitsu, Acrobat, Stealth, Laser Deflector, and for his big exclusive ninja power, Illumination. Once again, I'm not a massive Ninjago guy, but in my research I found Lloyd is the elemental master of energy, and the best they could do with that in Dimensions is a flashlight. Okay then. This is kinda disappointing, honestly. Lloyd is a 5 out of 10 for usefulness. Thankfully, this is the last time I will have to say this, but Lloyd has access to the Ninjago hub world, which he shares with the other 6 characters we've already covered in the list, leaving him the same score of a 3 out of 10. Goodbye, Ninjago hub world. I won't miss you. So, Lloyd's minifigure definitely stands apart from the others, if not for any other reason than the fact it's bright gold.
Gold!
Now, again, not a Ninjago guy here, but I thought he was supposed to be green.
Green.
Anyway, this figure is kinda the odd one out from his friends, because whilst they were taken from the 2015 Tournament of Power, Lloyd's fig is a reuse from 2 sets in 2013, making him the least exclusive of all the ninja and a complete mismatch with the rest of the set. But with how he stands out and the real lack of exclusivity taken into account, I'm giving Lloyd a 5 out of 10 for minifigure. So, Lloyd's voice actor situation is something I touched on earlier when discussing Kai, with both of them being the odd ones out from the whole Nindroids cast in Dimensions thing. So, whilst all the other Ninjago characters got substitute voice actors who had played their respective roles in video games before, Lloyd and Kai both had brand new actors with no previous Ninjago credits. This means Karen Strassman is playing Lloyd in LEGO Dimensions, and she does a good job, but this is still a slight notch down from the others, leaving Lloyd with a 4 instead of a 5. Getting into fun, I think Lloyd is decent. He's got all the desirable movement qualities of other Ninjago characters, but he's definitely on the lower end of capabilities. His only unique trait is Illumination, which in itself is a fairly common ability, and not one that would cause me to place him on the toy pad all too often. Still, Ninja's got a ninja, so he's a 7 out of 10 for movement and combat alone. It's very fun running around as Lloyd. Rounding things off, Lloyd ends up with 24 points and the B tier. I think he stands out from his Ninjago castmates just for all the wrong reasons. A mismatching minifigure, a lack of any true individual quality, and an unfortunate situation with voice acting holds Lloyd back from leading the franchise. Still, B tier isn't too bad overall. Taking a quick break, we're now completely done with Year 1 characters and we're moving into the first wave of Year 2. It's worth noting from here that there was a very clear step up in terms of abilities, meaning Year 2 characters in general are a lot more useful than Year 1. This year would also introduce a brand new type of pack, being story packs that came with 6 levels, full cutscenes, and a build that you could place on the toy pad. Obviously, they were also more expensive, but these will help shake up the content category a little bit from just being hub worlds. Moving forward, I will still judge every single new character by the same rules, the same logic, and the same rating system in the interest of fairness. And after all, we're just here to find out which characters are the best. Next up, we've got Abby Yates, representing the not overly loved Ghostbusters 2016 reboot. But without that controversy hanging over her, how does she do in LEGO Dimensions? Let's see. Abby is actually a really useful character. She's got 8 abilities with Intelligence, Ghost Trap, Suspend Ghost, Ghost Puzzles, Laser, Hazard Protection, Charge Transfer, and PKE Meter. A few of those abilities may sound new if you've been following the video so far, and that's because some of them are. PKE Meter and Charge Transfer are both new abilities that play a big use in the Ghostbusters 2016 story pack, with Abby having exclusive access to both of them. In addition to that, Abby generally plays like a better version of Peter Venkman from the original film, being able to fully trap ghosts via a small minigame instead of an additional vehicle like Venkman. Abby can also transform into the other 3 Ghostbusters once her story pack is completed, which does actually add a few more abilities to her lineup, like Technology and Silver Blow-Up from Erin, Grapple and Fix It from Jill, and then Patty adds Super Strength and the exclusive ability Ghost Chipper, though that one is only used during the story pack and it's kinda lame. Overall, Abby kinda steals Venkman's role and improves on everything he can do. She's an 8 out of 10 for usefulness and a clear answer for any ghost-related puzzles in LEGO Dimensions. As for content, Abby is also our first example of a story pack character, having access to 6 original levels that play out like a beefier version of a level pack. The jump in content is absolutely wild, and whilst I'm not a fan of the movie it's based on, you can't deny the value of story packs. Completion of the story pack also gives Abby access to the original Ghostbusters hub world, though again this isn't exclusive as it's shared with 3 other characters. Funnily enough, as I've already covered in the video, Slimer, Stay Puft, and Venkman can also access Abby's hub world. So now that's not exclusive to her either, which is kinda funny when you think about it. Anyway, with the alternate characters, story pack levels, Ghostbusters 2016 hub world, and access to the original Ghostbusters hub, Abby gets a 10 out of 10 for content. This is a great show of content coming from a single character. Hopping over to the minifig category, Abby has only had a single appearance in other LEGO sets, being from a Ghostbusters set the same year she appeared in LEGO Dimensions. However, whilst her minifigure printing is the same between both versions, the Dimensions one comes out on top thanks to possessing dual molded legs. This is awesome, and whilst it's only a small thing, it's crazy to see Dimensions get the definitive Abby over the theme she's actually from. It's a solid minifigure with excellent printing all over and looks amazing with the Proton Pack. This is an 8 out of 10 minifigure. When researching the voice acting situation for Abby in Dimensions, I very nearly wrote her off for having a replacement voice actress. Melissa McCarthy does not return from the movie, with Dimensions instead using Caitlin Robrock, who hasn't played the character before or since. The same is true for Jillian Holtzman, one of the other playable skins, with Melissa Vanderskiff voicing her in place of Kate McKinnon from the movie. Somehow though, the other 2 playable Ghostbusters are portrayed by their actual actors from the movie, which is unexpected, but kind of cool, with both Erin and Patty being played by Kristen Wiig and Leslie Jones respectively. So to recap, 2 out of 4 of these Ghostbusters are played by replacement actors with no other Ghostbusters credits, and 2 out of 4 are played by the actual stars of the movie. Either way, I'm gonna give Abby a 5 out of 10 score, being that she's the main character of the pack, the one advertised on the box, and the one you'll spend the most time with, yet she's got a replacement actress with no other experience with the character. This was probably the weirdest representation score I've had to give out, but I'm sticking to my guns, as usually I'd give a replacement voice actor with no franchise experience a 4, just like I did for Lloyd from Ninjago. Overall, as crazy as it sounds to say this, Abby is a ton of fun. Again, not even liking the source material, I was shocked to see how mechanically competent Abby was in Dimensions, being a complete and total replacement for Venkman, plus even eclipsing the original Ghostbuster in terms of content for the game, which wasn't an easy thing to do. Abby gets 8 out of 10 for fun, for making the ghost puzzle simpler and less clunky to deal with. Abby's final score is 39 points, leaving her a single point shy shy of being S tier. Don't get me wrong, she's a great character, but I think A tier works for her. There are more characters to come who will show you what it truly means to be an S tier character. Moving into one of the fan favorite Dimensions franchises, we now have Finn the Human from Adventure Time. Let's see how he stacks up against Year 1 and if he can continue the standard set by Abby for Year 2. When it comes to abilities, Finn has a grand total of 11. He's got Acrobat, Laser Deflector, Grapple, Vine Cut, Laser, Target, Pole Vault, Rope Swing, and the new Sword Switches and Cursed Red Lego abilities. Even just from that list, Finn is clearly a very useful character, being a good answer to many random scenarios. But it's worth noting that Finn can't do all of these abilities right out of the box, and that he needs to find the various swords and weapons through his hub and level pack. But just looking at what he can do, Finn is an easy 8 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Finn is the sole character with access to the Adventure Time level pack, which, whilst not as big as the flashy new story packs, still packs quite a punch when it comes to in-game content. It's an amazing level pack filled with references to Adventure Time, and Finn can also access the Adventure Time hub world, which is shared with 3 other characters. Another cool facet of Finn's character is that by exploring the hub, you can unlock a separate character to play as. This is Fern the Human, though this is simply a skin swap, as no new abilities or content come from this. Still, this is a nice unlockable bonus that uses other content in an interesting way, alongside the sword and weapon upgrades. With all that in mind, I would rate Finn's content score at 8 out of 10, simply for being great content and giving the character a unique sense of progression. This figure of Finn is not only exclusive to Dimensions, but also his only minifigure in all of LEGO, meaning this is another big win for LEGO Dimensions. The detailing is amazing with dual molded arms and legs, a custom faceprint and helmet, plus the backpack and sword to tie it all together. I could gush all day, but this is clearly a 10 out of 10 situation. In terms of representation, Adventure Time as a whole is very well represented in Dimensions, with plenty of returning voice actors and a real air of authenticity about it all. Finn himself is voiced by his longtime voice actor Jeremy Sharder, with a ton of content written specifically for Dimensions both in-game and in cutscenes thanks to the level pack. Once again, this depiction of Finn is perfectly faithful and accurate, making it a 10 out of 10 for representation. Finn's fun factor is incredible. Not only are you playing as a character that perfectly reflects and represents their franchise in LEGO form, but mechanically he's super unique, and I love the progression tied to the sword mechanic. It doesn't feel clunky or annoying in the way that Midway Kid did, as these abilities don't run out and require constant top-ups. Plus, the fact you unlock them yourself gives you a real sense of ownership over the character. Finn is an 8 out of 10 for fun factor. All of this added together gives Finn a total of 42 points, meaning we have another S tier character. Next up, we have another level pack character and the sole rep for the Mission Impossible franchise. Let's see how Ethan Hunt handles the tier list. Agent Hunt doesn't mess around when it comes to abilities. The dude is absolutely stacked with 13 of them in total, which may well be the most so far on this list. He's capable of Acrobat, Target, Technology, Climb, Drone Maze, Grapple, Silver Blowup, Stealth, Dive, X-Ray Vision, Rope Swings, and exclusively to him, the new Scan Disguise and Fuse Box abilities. Finally, like Gollum and Cyberman, Ethan can use Silver Blowup underwater, making a technical kind of 14th ability. But even just glancing at that ridiculously long list puts Ethan in the discussion for being one of the most useful characters in the whole game. This is easily a 10 out of 10. Content-wise, once again, this is a slam dunk. Ethan has exclusive access to both the Mission Impossible hub world and the Mission Impossible level pack, which, after recently completing for the first time on stream, I can say is a ton of fun. I'm gonna have to give Ethan a 10 out of 10 for content. For his minifigure, Ethan is in a similar position to Finn, with his fig being exclusive to Dimensions and the only current version of the character in all of LEGO. This would put him in line for a 10 out of 10, but even though he's got a cool face print, some nice dual molded arms, and a decent torso print, the legs are completely blank, and I can't get the word basic out of my mind when I look at it. So I'll give Ethan an 8 out of 10 because despite my personal feelings, the figure is still good and exclusive to Dimensions. Where Ethan Hunt unfortunately falls down for me is representation. It would seem that Tom Cruise was busy making the exact same movie for a 14th time, or I don't know, throwing himself out of a plane or something, because he apparently turned down appearing in the game, but according to the ever-reliable LEGO Dimensions wiki, he personally approved the use of his archived audio in-game. And you know how I feel about archived audio. This is pretty much the worst way you could set up a character for a crossover. 1 out of 10. Thankfully, the fun factor picks up the slack, because playing as Ethan Hunt genuinely feels like you're some kind of secret agent. The disguise ability is an awesome mechanic, plus he's got such a wide range of generally useful abilities that he more than earns a spot on the toy pad. He's solid, fun, and exactly what Dimensions needed more of, just maybe with some better characterization and voice acting. 8 out of 10. Ethan's mission is completed with 37 points total and a spot on the higher end of A tier. Had his voice acting situation been a bit better, he'd have easily made it into S tier, but for now, this is still a solid place on the list. We're now moving into one of the most iconic movie franchises and LEGO themes of all time, with Harry Potter, The Boy Who Lived. Harry was one of 3 reps for his franchise, but how does his inclusion affect the game? Let's take a look. Harry's usefulness score laughs in the face of Gandalf and the Wicked Witch, bringing with him a ton of abilities, eclipsing even Ethan Hunt with 14 total abilities. He's got literally everything Wicked Witch can do and more, pushing Gandalf even further into the realms of obscurity. Harry can use water spray, target, laser deflector, flight, illumination, silver Lego blow up, stealth, magic, magical shield, growth, hazard cleaner, and make use of 3 brand new abilities for year 2, with Defindo, Parcel Tongue Doors, and Apparate Access. Or is it Apparate Access? Who cares? Harry is an excellent example of what I spoke about earlier, with year 2 really ramping up how much the characters are capable of. This is a clear case of 10 out of 10 for usefulness, and a great start to the Harry Potter reps on this list. In terms of content, Harry only has access to the iconic Harry Potter hub world, which is shared with 2 other characters, giving him a 5 out of 10 for content. For his minifigure, Harry comes from a long line of variants, with a ton of variants of Harry Potter being made both before and since Dimensions, but here, in Dimensions, he's just okay. There's nothing amazingly different about this one, though it is an exclusive variant. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I like the printing, but there's really very little to say about it overall. Daniel Radcliffe was unfortunately unavailable to return for Dimensions, so the team went with archived audio, which, as you know by now, is pretty bad. This is an unfortunate 1 out of 10 in representation. Thankfully, Harry is a ton of fun to use in-game. Like I said before, he totally eclipses Gandalf and Wicked Witch, making him the de facto answer to any of your magical needs. He's easily an 8 out of 10 for fun. All things considered, Harry gets a total of 30 points, placing him in the A tier. Whilst this might seem a bit low given how insanely useful he is, this is a great reminder that Dimensions was about far more than mere abilities. The main things holding him back from a higher score would be some original voice work, and maybe some more exclusive content. Plus, it couldn't hurt to give him a more striking minifigure. From the boy who lived to the man who tried to kill the boy who lived, we're now at Voldemort, being one of 2 very pale characters in the game whose names you really shouldn't say, and also the other half of Harry's team pack. Either way, he too is a wizard, so let's see what that means for his score. Right off the bat, Voldemort keeps pace with Harry, having 14 abilities to his name. Though many of them are the same, there's some key differences. But getting the mutual ones out of the way first, Voldemort can use water spray, target, laser deflector, Defindo, flying, illumination, silver Lego blow up, magic, magical shield, hazard cleaner, growth, apparate access, and parcel tongue doors. Where he differs is instead of having stealth, he instead has mind control. This doesn't really make him any more or less useful than Harry, though if anything, mind control is a much less common ability than stealth. So naturally, Voldemort also gets a 10 out of 10. Once again, Voldemort has access to the Harry Potter hub world, meaning he shares a score with Harry of 5 out of 10 for content. Getting into his minifig, Voldemort is decent, though he too suffers from a lack of real detail. Don't get me wrong, you know who it's meant to be, and the cape helps cut him a more unique silhouette, but like Harry, he doesn't really compare to the countless versions we've had since. I like what we have here in Dimensions a whole lot, but I can't score this any higher than a 6, even if that is one of the funniest facial expressions I've ever seen on a Lego man. Unfortunately, old Voldy is also an archive audio character, with Ralph Fiennes not appearing in the game. 1 out of 10. So as we previously established, Voldemort overall is very similar to Harry, which makes a ton of sense from a lore perspective and an in-game perspective, given they were also sold together in a team pack. Still, it's nuts to me just how useful they are, and that makes them a ton of fun to use in-game. 8 out of 10. Voldemort's total is 30 points, landing him right next to Harry in the A tier. They play similarly, they've got similar issues, and they share content. This one just makes a lot of sense. We're making a hard turn out of Hogwarts and back to the land of Ooh, with Jake from Adventure Time being up next. If like me you haven't had much experience with Adventure Time, this one might shock you. Jake's abilities manage to keep pace with Year 2 and even overtake Finn, with 14 total abilities altogether. Jake can use Grapple, Illumination, Slurp Access, Tracking, Dig, Rope Swings, Super Strength, Drill, Gyrosphere Switches, Sonar Smash, Dive, Mini Access, Drone Mazes, and Big Transform. By far the most unique thing about Jake is that he accesses many of his abilities through a transformation wheel, with some wild results. For example, you can become a Jake suit and then ride along inside him with another character. It's not exactly super useful, but it is very cool. It's also nice to see things like Gyrosphere Jake, which make Gyrosphere puzzles accessible without the use of a vehicle. I could honestly go on about Jake for ages. I even made a YouTube short specifically about him, but for usefulness, that's easy. 10 out of 10. Jake is only a team pack character, so he's got access to the Adventure Time hub world, which, whilst awesome in itself, is a mutual hub shared between 4 characters, so it's not exclusive. This is a fair 5 out of 10 for Jake, which he will share with the other 2 that we've yet to cover. Jake's minifigure mirrors Finn's in a big way, that being that it's completely exclusive to Dimensions, uses a nice custom head mold, and he's never been seen in minifig form outside of Dimensions. He uses short legs to accurately reflect his height, and in his case, the minimal torso printing is actually more accurate to his character. This, to me, is a 10 out of 10 for minifigure. Like the rest of the Adventure Time cast, Jake's actual voice actor, the legendary John DiMaggio, returns to play him here in Dimensions. As I've established previously, this is the most ideal outcome, giving the character plenty of unique voice lines and opportunities to interact with others, and really take advantage of the crossover element in Dimensions. This is a 10 out of 10 for representation as well. When it comes to fun, Jake has everything you could want in one place. He's got a ton of abilities, he's funny to listen to, he's animated well, and he's voiced faithfully. It helps that he's from a very funny franchise, and thanks to his unique utility with transformations, you can find endless scenarios to enjoy playing as Jake. I didn't get it before this video, but I do now. Jake is 100% in the top 5 characters for this game, but here and now, 10 out of 10 for fun. This gives Jake a massive total of 45 points. That's S tier placement. Again, this is coming from someone who isn't even familiar with Adventure Time all too much, but Jake's utility is undeniable in this game, and a brilliant inclusion from the devs. The only shortfall? He doesn't have any exclusive content. Moving on, the other half of the Adventure Time team pack is Lumpy Space Princess, who has featured previously in my top 5 Dimensions characters video, but that was a long time ago, and in making this list, I would say my opinions have shifted significantly. So, does the Lumpy Lady have a lump to stand on? Let's take a look. It would seem that usefulness isn't really the category for LSP. She's got 6 abilities, which would be solid by Year 1 standards, but when you look at her Year 2 brethren, she quickly falls short. Still, the 6 abilities she has are Boomerang, Hazard Protection, Rainbow Lego Objects, Mini Access, Slurp Access, and Target. This means her main strength is in passing through the different types of vent puzzles. But with the incredibly specific utility aside, I would say 5 out of 10 for usefulness is a fair shake. It's a shame she doesn't really have any Year 2 specific qualities though. LSP's content score is the same as Jake's with a 5 out of 10. She's from Adventure Time, so I'll let you guess which hub she has access to. Looking at Lumpy's minifigure, the first word that jumps to mind is Slimer. She's very similar in build, and despite the simplicity, has some very expressive printing and an accurate silhouette to the source material. Once again, like Finn and Jake, this is the only minifigure of LSP to exist, and it's fully exclusive to Dimensions, boosting her score slightly to an 8 out of 10, with the fig being pretty much perfect for the character. By far, LSP's strongest quality, the representation here is incredible and maintains Adventure Time's strong score in the category. LSP is voiced by the creator of the show, Pendleton Ward, making it a perfect depiction in Dimensions. However, LSP's personality is so evident through these voice lines, it's just hard to hate her. This is another 10 out of 10 for representation for Adventure Time. Even though LSP is essentially a nerfed Slimer, there's something incredibly fun about using the character, and I will always enjoy playing as her. She's simple in a fun way that defies all logic, scoring an impressive 8 out of 10. LSP places highly with 36 points. This is a case of personality and representation towering over utility and ability. She makes it into A tier, surpassing a bunch of characters who are arguably way more useful, but she does it in style. Coming to the end of Wave 6, we have B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. If you don't know who that is, ask your mum. She'll know. This was also the beginning of Year 2's weird obsession with 80s franchises. Either way, I pity the fool who makes a game aimed at 10-year-olds in 2015 and puts a bunch of franchises in it from the 1980s. Let's see what B.A. can do and how he places on our list. When it comes to usefulness, B.A. has a total of 6 abilities, with many of them unfortunately being very basic stuff we got a lot of in Year 1, such as Target, Fix It, Silver Lego Blow Up, Super Strength, and Laser Deflector. The only real draw in usefulness is his new exclusive skill, the A-Team Master Build, which is literally Master Build from Year 1 in every way, just red instead of purple, and locked off only to Baracus. You do also unlock the ability to change into the other 3 members of the A-Team, but all of them can only do Silver Blow Up and Target, which B.A. already does. Also, they can't do the A-Team Master Build, despite being 3/4 of the A-Team. B.A.'s content is basic but effective, given that he brings access to the A-Team hub world, and it's 100% exclusive to him. Plus, the notion of unlocking 3 skins in the hub is still something to do, which gives him a content score of 7 out of 10. For minifigure, B.A.'s fig is completely exclusive to Dimensions, with no other appearances in the larger LEGO scene. Though the fig itself appears basic, the hairpiece and torso print especially do a good job approximating the character in LEGO form. And I like it. I'll give it a slight bump due to the exclusivity, but keeping the simplistic nature in mind, this is a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. B.A. is voiced by the legendary Dave Fennoy, who you might know from the Telltale Walking Dead game. Obviously, Mr. T is the actor most associated with B.A., though they did also have the option of reaching out to Rampage Jackson from the reboot. Still, what we have here in Dimensions is good work. If for nothing else than how good it sounds, I'll give B.A. a 5. B.A. can be fun, but even once you're done unlocking the other members of the A-Team, it's kinda disappointing to find out they have no unique abilities. I feel like that one detail could have potentially saved B.A. from being so useless outside of his exclusive ability. As it goes, he's just a situational character you pop out for his one ability. Then you just put him away again, and he's not much fun outside of that. 3 out of 10. B.A. ends up quite literally in the middle of the road with 25 points in the B tier. Had he been given anything else exclusive, or had his friends brought some new abilities to the table, he could have placed higher. A very weird feeling inclusion with a very forced and situational exclusive ability. Better luck next time. We're now moving into Wave 7, which came out on the 10th of February 2017, with 7 total characters. This one might be one of the strongest waves in the entire game, with some really nice minifigures and a good mix of content. Let's dive right in and check it out. And up next, we have the star of the Harry Potter spin-off series, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. At the time of release, Fantastic Beasts was an up-and-coming movie series, which ultimately fizzled out and left little impact by the end. But that didn't stop TT from giving it a go in Dimensions with a full story pack. So let's dive in and see if Newt knows where to find a good tier list placement. Well, starting off strong, Newt has a total of 15 abilities, with some key exclusives among them. He has Magic, Magical Shield, Diffindo, Illumination, Water Spray, Growth, Target, Hazard Cleaner, Intelligence, Silver Lego Blow Up, Laser Deflector, Apparate Access, and Fix It, plus lockpicking with his little twig friend. It's a shame though, because his other friend, Jacob Kowalski, who Newt can transform into, has absolutely 0 abilities, making him less useful than the little twig guy. Still, Newt more than picks up the slack with all those abilities, making him a 10 out of 10 for usefulness. Newt is also our next story pack character, meaning like Abby Yates from Ghostbusters, he brings access to a 6th level story campaign, featuring a bunch of cutscenes and extra content for the game. In addition to this, he has the usual access to his franchise hub world, which is semi-exclusive, being shared with only one other character. This is an abundance of content, giving Newt a score of 10 out of 10. Newt's minifigure is somehow one of only 3 total variants seen in all of LEGO, something that shocked me given his status as a main character. However, the fig we have in Dimensions, whilst nice, is incredibly basic, and even though I like the continuity here between the torso and legs, plus the face print, I find it lacking somehow. I'll give the minifigure a 5 out of 10, which is a shame, but honestly, it's kind of average. For representation, Newt was played by Eddie Redmayne in the movies, and he returns to Dimensions to voice the character. This is awesome, and gives Newt a big edge over the other Harry Potter characters in the game, not to mention making him one of only 2 wizards in the whole of Dimensions to be voiced by their original actor, which is a fun but somewhat sad fact. Still, you know the drill by now. This is an automatic 10 out of 10 for representation, and a welcome surprise for someone of Redmayne's caliber. When it comes to fun, there's an argument to be made that Newt should be the most fun of all the wizards in Dimensions, given how many abilities he has and some cool exclusive ones at that. However, whilst I think he's fun, he's a notch below the likes of Harry and Voldemort for me, simply for being a little less iconic and therefore less interesting to run around as, though not by much. So I'll deduct 1 point and put Newt at a 7 out of 10 for fun. Newt ends his time in Dimensions with a solid 42 points and a placement in the S tier. He's a great example of content, abilities, and representation, but a simplistic minifigure and a lack of character status in pop culture prevents him from completely dominating the system. Still, what a first impression for his franchise. We're moving into the very reason I picked up Dimensions in the first place. Sonic the Hedgehog was such an oddball inclusion in Dimensions that turned many heads, and though it took nearly 10 years, it got me to try the game. Still, putting my personal love for Sonic aside, let's get into his score and discuss his inclusion in Dimensions. Sonic is a great example of usefulness not being entirely dependent on the number of abilities, though that doesn't mean he isn't sufficiently equipped. Sonic has 7 abilities, with the obvious ones being Speed, Acrobat, Super Strength, and a new ability for Year 2, Grind Rails. However, completing his level pack will unlock Super Sonic as a transformation, which brings with it Invulnerability, Laser Deflector, and Super Jumps. Still, Sonic's core attribute and main factor for usefulness is that he plays so differently to everyone else. His main method of attacking, the homing attack, is a mechanic ripped directly from his series, which allows for a genius mixture of combat and traversal in a single move. Plus, being able to spin dash and jump off inclines makes traversal an absolute joke for Sonic, by far being the best character for exploration. This means even though his abilities are generally not great for puzzles, he is great for everything else. He's an 8 out of 10 in this category. As for content, Sonic has the entire Sonic the Hedgehog level pack called Sonic Dimensions, which is an amazing tribute to the character and world, rich with authentic voiceover and references. Plus, he also has exclusive access to his own hub world with many of the same qualities. This is essentially a Chell situation from Portal, an instant 10 out of 10 for sheer exclusivity and quality, making Sonic a worthwhile addition from a content perspective, bringing a lot to the actual game. Now, Sonic's minifigure might not strike you as anything special by today's standards, but it's worth noting that this is the original. This fig alone spawned an entire theme that we have today, with today's figs barely changing from this now 10-year-old ancestor. Despite this variant being exclusive to Dimensions for printing reasons, it's still worth noting at time of release and for a good few years after, this was the only version of Sonic in LEGO form. This fig has it all. Custom molded head, great torso printing, and dual molded legs. It perfectly captures the essence of Sonic, and I'd be stupid to give it anything less than a 10 out of 10. Sonic's current voice actor, Roger Craig Smith, returns to the role for Dimensions.
Oh yeah, this is happening!
Not only on a character level, but also for things like cutscenes during the level pack. What's even more awesome is that all of Sonic's at the time cast made returns for their respective characters, which is amazing. This ultimately was already a 10 out of 10 just for Roger, but the fact there are so many references and callbacks present in every aspect of Sonic, from quotes to locations to even animations recreated from other games, Sonic is the perfect example of representation in Dimensions. 10 out of 10, easy. As for fun, I don't think it'll shock any of you that I give Sonic a 10. There's so many reasons for this, but above all else it comes down to how unique he is to play as, with his movement capabilities making other worlds from the game just as fun to explore as they are to break in half. 10 out of 10. Sonic's total score is the highest so far, with a near perfect 48 points, and a spot in the top of the S tier. Honestly, I know I'm biased for loving the Sonic series, but I think I explained my reasons well and backed them up with good logic. Had every character on this list been treated with the same respect by TT Games, they'd all be absolutely incredible and far more unique. Heading back to the 80s for a minute, we're going to be taking a look at the Gremlins team pack, starting with the meaner, greener gremlin, Stripe. For his abilities, Stripe only has 4, and all of them are pretty basic, with Vine Cut, Target, Dig, and Acrobat. This kinda speaks for itself, but Vine Cut is easily his rarest ability, and for a Year 2 character, this really isn't all that good, especially with something we'll talk about in the next entry. I'd give Stripe a 3 out of 10 for usefulness, and even that feels kinda generous. Stripe shares access to the Gremlins hub world with Gizmo, which makes sense given they're both in the same team pack, but unfortunately the Gremlins hub is neither neither special nor exclusive, so they'll both get a 4 out of 10 for content. Minifigures are a different story, however, with Stripe having an excellent and exclusive minifigure here in Dimensions. I love the custom headpiece, this weird leg piece, and all of the printing. I think it's obvious, but the minifigure is clearly Stripe's strongest aspect, and I can't help but feel like they're pulling a Bart Simpson on us, selling this pack based almost entirely on minifigure appeal alone. Still, as it stands, Stripe gets a 7 out of 10 for minifigure. The one-man band Frank Welker returns to Dimensions to voice Stripe. What is this, like the 4th character he's voiced for this game? This is insane. It's kind of hilarious to think how different many scores could have been on this list had Welker said no to Dimensions. Still, this is the original actor returning, so that's an automatic 10 out of 10 for Stripe in LEGO Dimensions. Yet on the complete opposite end of the score system, I'm giving Stripe a 1 out of 10 for fun. He's nothing special, and I'll go more into why that is in the next entry. Altogether, Stripe has a total of 25 points, landing in the B tier. He would have been so much worse off if it wasn't for the GOAT Frank Welker returning to portray him. And again, ability-wise, there's just no reason to be using Stripe regularly. Gizmo is next, another Gremlins character and the other half of the Gremlins team pack. Let's see if he's got something that puts him above Stripe, or if the whole pack should just be thrown out in one go. Well, things do start off a lot more positively for Gizmo. He's got a total of 5 main abilities in his base form, consisting of Mini Access, Target, Silver Blow Up, Grapple, and Rope Swing. However, you may have noticed I said base form. That's because through a little known trick by feeding Gizmo Scooby-Doo's sandwich vehicle, you can actually transform him into his gremlin form. In gremlin mode, Gizmo then gains access to 3 more abilities, all of which being the same ones as Stripe, with Vine Cut, Dig, and Acrobat, essentially making Stripe entirely pointless. Still, with those few abilities requiring some extra steps and ownership of unrelated content, it's a weird one, so I'm going to give Gizmo a usefulness of 6 out of 10. He's not amazingly competent, but he's a notch above Stripe and many of the Year 1 characters. Gizmo and Stripe share the same Gremlins hub world as mentioned previously. This means they get a shared score at 4 out of 10, given that, as I said earlier, the hub isn't anything special nor exclusive. For minifigure, I would say Gizmo is a lot less detailed than Stripe, with a notable difference being in printing. He's got a torso print, but plain arms and legs, plus absolutely nothing going on round back. The custom head mold saves him from complete annihilation, and ultimately this does look like a LEGO Gizmo, plus it's exclusive to Dimensions. It did look like this was going to change with the LEGO Ideas Gizmo set, however since recording this video, we have found out that there will be no minifigure in that set, meaning Gizmo remains a Dimensions exclusive. This is a 6 out of 10 for minifigure. Somewhat shockingly, Howie Mandel of all people was the original voice actor for Gizmo in the 80s, and returns to voice him once again in LEGO Dimensions. This was unexpected. Who would have thought that Howie Mandel would end up in the same project as Sonic the Hedgehog? Still, authentic voice acting equals a 10 out of 10 for representation. One other cool tidbit I liked is that Gizmo has an exclusive death animation when exposed to water, something that, like the sandwich ability, is a reference to the movie. I like this a lot, and I think this adds to Gizmo's representation. I think Gizmo is quite middle of the road when it comes to fun factor. He's cool looking and gives off some charm, sure, but when it gets down to it, he's missing a hook to keep you putting him back on the toy pad. And beyond the 2 novelties of sandwiches and death, I don't think there's much else there. 5 out of 10. This puts Gizmo at 31 points and the A tier, something that I honestly didn't expect, even whilst adding the numbers up myself. Still, this is more proof to me that the system is doing what it was supposed to do, eliminating as much bias as possible and looking beyond the abilities and at other aspects of being a Toys to Life product. Next up is this second half of the Fantastic Beasts franchise in Dimensions, and strangely enough, the first ever character that I owned for the game. But the real question is, will Tina Goldstein live up to Newt's high standards? Let's see. Tina starts off very strong with a total of 13 abilities. Being a witch herself, she's got many of the same abilities you'd expect from the likes of Harry, Newt, and Voldemort, such as Magic, Illumination, Magical Shield, Target, Defindo, Silver Lego Blow-Up, Laser Deflector, Water Spray, Growth, Hazard Cleaner, Apparate Access, and in somewhat of an unexpected twist, Acrobat. It's also worth noting that Tina can also transform into her sister upon completing the Fantastic Beasts story pack, turning her into Queenie Goldstein, who has access to the Mind Control ability, which brings the total to 14. Whilst Tina possesses a couple less abilities than Newt, namely his 2 exclusive ones, Tina is still another example of a versatile magic character, with plenty of other uses. She gets a 9 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Tina only has access to the Fantastic Beasts hub world. Despite it being semi-exclusive, this hub world is a tad drab and boring, resulting in a 4 out of 10 for content. Fig-wise, Tina is one of 3 total variants to exist, with the one we have here being a LEGO Dimensions exclusive. It's interesting how similar her minifigure feels to Newt's, also sharing many of the same qualities and issues. She's got some nice printing continuity between the torso and legs, but overall the fig is just too basic for my taste. And even though that hat piece is actually quite cool, I don't think I could justify giving her anything above a 5 out of 10 for minifigure. Thankfully, Catherine Waterston returns from Fantastic Beasts to voice Tina, making her voiceover, at the very least, very authentic to the source material. I do like that as a whole, Fantastic Beasts really picked up Harry Potter's slack when it came to the voice acting, refusing to use archive audio. This is awesome, and it gives Tina a much needed 10 out of 10 for representation. It's somewhat unfortunate, however, that I don't find Tina all that notable to play as. It's interesting to see a wizard character with acrobat, that's definitely somewhat unique, but she's just way less notable than Harry, Newt and Voldemort, having less abilities on paper and way less of an iconic status to really reinforce the fun factor, 5 out of 10. So Tina ends up with 33 points, placing her in the A tier. This isn't bad placement by any means, and this is mostly thanks to her excellent range of abilities and her authentic voiceover. You might want to call your mum back from the other room because E.T. came to Dimensions straight out of the 1980s, bringing us right back to the year 2 80s obsession. Will he be worth phoning home about, or will E.T. sink back into obscurity, right next to those Atari games in the desert? Let's take a look and see. Getting right into abilities, E.T. has 7. He's got mini access, fix it, illumination, stealth, magic, growth, and heart regen. Abilities which would all be decent by year 1 standards. To me, none of these particularly stand out as amazing. Even the combination of abilities is nothing special, with magic, growth and illumination all being core traits of the numerous wizard characters, though it is somewhat funny to think that E.T. is technically a better wizard than Gandalf. Let that one sink in for you. I don't feel like E.T. is really capable of too much though, even if his stealth animation is hilarious. He gets a 5 out of 10 for usefulness. E.T. does have some exclusive content, being the only character from his franchise. Naturally, only he has access to the E.T. hub world, and this might be one of, if not the most bland world in the entire game. But still, I can't fairly give him anything lower than a 5 out of 10, even if the world is boring to me. Looking at the minifigure and the bigger picture, I'd have to say the fig is arguably the strongest part of E.T.'s inclusion in Dimensions. It's a good blend of a custom headpiece, mixed with some more simplistic printing on the torso, and not much else. This one is a bit of a Bart situation to me, again feeling like an inclusion based vaguely on how recognisable he is, without any real thought given to content or abilities. Still, I'll give E.T. a 7 for minifigure. When it comes to representation, E.T. is in a similar boat to the Wicked Witch, where the original voice actor, in this case Patricia Welsh, unfortunately passed away back in 1995, 20 years before Dimensions even released. This means the next best scenario would be to use a stand-in voice actor, which to Dimensions' credit, they did. So if I'm being fair, the natural comparison would be the score that I gave to the Wicked Witch. So E.T. gets a 6 out of 10 for representation, given that TT don't control who lives and dies, and near enough anything is better than using archived audio. It might not come as any surprise, but I don't find E.T. all that fun to use. He's slow, a bit underwhelming on abilities and content, and really doesn't appeal to me all that much. The most fun thing you can do with E.T. is shove him on the special stage in Sonic's world so he finally gets a move on. With that in mind, I'll give him a 4 out of 10. When everything is said and done, E.T. has a total of 27 points, which gives him a place in the B tier. Nothing crazy special and nothing horribly awful either. Rounding out Wave 7, we have Marceline, the Vampire Queen, aka the final character from Adventure Time. I gotta admit, before LEGO Dimensions, I had no idea who this character was, so let's dig in and find out what she brings to the game. Marceline starts off really well with plenty of abilities. She's got 13 in total with a lot of useful ones. For example, she's got Flight, both Slurp and Mini Access, Sonar Smash, Magic, Dig, Tracking, Stealth, Acrobat, Heart Regen, Vine Cut, Super Strength, and she can smash up cursed red LEGO objects. It's kind of hard to explain, but taking a look at her abilities, she's essentially Scooby-Doo, Owen Grady, and a bit of a wizard character all mashed into one. This is a really strong set of abilities and a decent variety too, which leaves Marceline on the same level as the likes of Harry Potter, giving her a 10 out of 10 for usefulness, which honestly surprised me. As for content, she's got the same access to Adventure Time's hub world as Jake and LSP, so she also has the same score, 5 out of 10. For her minifigure, Marceline Marceline has some really cool detailing. I love her custom faceprint and her dual molded legs. Plus, the battle axe accessory is also a really nice build. She's an Adventure Time character too, so she's got Dimensions exclusivity and is also the only version of her to exist as a minifig. The only thing holding her back from being a 10 out of 10 is the fact she possesses no custom molds like Jake or Finn, but honestly, that's such a minor criticism in the face of an otherwise amazing fig. 9 out of 10. Like all three of her fellow franchise members, Marceline's original voice actor from the show returns with all new content for Dimensions, who immediately adds that level of authenticity and interactivity that we love so much, which, fun fact, also makes Adventure Time 4 for 4 when it comes to representing their characters. This is another 10 out of 10. In terms of fun, whenever I put Marceline on the toy pad, I'm reminded of how insanely versatile and useful she is, which is kinda shocking to me because you don't really hear her name in the conversation about Best Dimensions characters. She's 100% on the same level as the Hogwarts Wizards for utility, and then factor in the Adventure Time charm, and you have one of the best characters in the game. I'll give Marceline an 8 out of 10 for fun. Adding up Marceline's points leaves her with 42 in total, and an S tier placement. Again, she's got a great mix of representation, usefulness, and a solid minifigure. You can't go wrong with Marceline. Weirdly, Wave 7.5 is only 4 characters long and also released on the 10th of February 2017, meaning it came out the same day as Wave 7. No idea what that's about, but here we go with Wave 7.5. Wait a minute, wasn't Batman in the starter pack? Oh, this is Excalibur Batman. Getting into it, Excalibur Batman is essentially an upgraded version of Batman from the starter pack. He's got 8 abilities, ranging from the usual boomerang, stealth and grapple, through to laser deflector, rope swings, super strength, master build, and sword switch. I'm glad that big sword isn't just for show, and having the ability to interact with those sword switches does put him in a fairly exclusive club, being one of only 2 characters with the ability, the other one being Finn. Still, that one semi-exclusive aside, despite having a decent number of abilities, Excalibur Batman isn't really all that useful. It's also kinda weird that he doesn't have Vine Cut. What's with that? He's a definite replacement for Batman, but we're in the 2nd year of the game now, and naturally, comparing him with a starter pack character, he was always going to outshine the original Batman. Overall, when taking abilities into consideration and how often he's useful, I'd say Excalibur gets a 6 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Excalibur Batman finally breaks the DC curse, having access to the LEGO Batman Movie Hub instead. This is super refreshing, and the hub is honestly so much better. However, it is still shared with 2 other characters, meaning it's not exclusive at all, landing a 5 out of 10 in content. This minifigure of Batman is based on a one-off scene in the LEGO Batman movie, where Batman himself doesn't even wear the outfit. But here as a physical fig, it makes quite the impression and certainly stands out from the rest of the roster. For one thing, the color combination of silver and blue with the yellow highlights is amazing. I love the oversized sword piece, and I think this fig gives off way more personality than the original one. It's also a Dimensions exclusive, with no other sets ever using Excalibur Batman, which is honestly quite shocking given how many LEGO Batman movie sets exist. This is an 8 out of 10 minifigure for sure. If you can remember all the way back to the beginning of this massive video, during Batman's original entry we discussed that Will Arnett returned from the LEGO Batman movie to voice the unlockable alternate variant. Well, this was kinda right and kinda wrong, because Will Arnett was actually returning from the LEGO movie, but this time he is returning from the LEGO Batman movie. So, same difference, I guess. Well, the same is true here, except this time it's Batman's main and only voice. Arnett gives the perfect performance for this version of the character, making silly quips and jokes. I love how non-serious this version of Batman is, and given the return of the original actor with nothing holding him back, this version of Batman gets a 10 out of 10 for representation. Even though he's not the most useful character in the game, I love using Excalibur Batman for so many reasons. He's a better Batman for one thing. Yeah, he's a 3rd playable variant of Batman, but he looks so cool. I think he's just way more interesting than his other versions. So for the fun score, I'll give him an 8 out of 10. With everything considered, Excalibur Batman ends up with 37 points and a spot in the A tier. This is a huge improvement over the previous Batman, and whilst many people point to this one and call it a wasted slot, I'd like to point those people back to the likes of Joker, Harley and Bane, who are way less equipped and way less fun to use. Anyway, I hope you weren't getting Batman fatigue, because up next we have 2 characters who were featured in the LEGO Batman movie story pack, starting with Barbara Gordon, better known to my stream audience as Oracle. Will her score be up to snuff, or is it going to be some kind of killing joke? For Batgirl's abilities, she has 7 in total. Babs can handle boomerang, grapple, rope swing, stealth, and glide, which is somewhat expected for a Batman character. Plus, she's also got detective mode and high security areas, which are both new abilities mainly used in the Batman movie story pack. Overall, there's not much of a difference between Batgirl and the movie variant of Batman, besides the terminals which remain exclusive to her. Still, that does mean her key use is very situational and doesn't appear once in the first half of the game, so I'll stick with a 6 out of 10 for usefulness. She's a good character overall, but not notably better than Batman in any real way. For content, we just covered how Excalibur Batman granted access to the new LEGO Batman Movie Hub, which Batgirl also naturally has access to. But in addition to that, she is also one of 2 characters who can access the LEGO Batman Movie Story Pack, which is a full 6-level story campaign full of cutscenes and gameplay. This naturally bumps her content score up, but given that neither of these things are solely exclusive to her, I'll land Batgirl's content score on an 8 out of 10. Batgirl uses the same minifigure seen in the LEGO Batman movie sets, which both makes a lot of sense and also brings a lot of accuracy along with it. The only element unique to Dimensions seems to be a face print, which at least makes it a unique variant. I like this fig a lot, it's colourful and represents this version of Batgirl very well. I'd say this fig is a 7 out of 10. It's not entirely exclusive to the game, but it works well, looks great, and at least seems to have one exclusive element. Batgirl is voiced by Rosario Dawson in Dimensions, the very same actress who played her in the movie. I like her depiction in the game. It feels very faithful and accurate. The animations once again match up with the animation style from the movie in the same way the LEGO movie handled things. And overall, this is a slam dunk for representation. An easy 10 out of 10. It's a shame that other than the Batgirl exclusive terminals, I don't find myself using her all too often. Unfortunately, there are just a ton more exciting and useful characters in Dimensions, especially when it comes to DC. Batgirl gets a 5 out of 10 for fun. Altogether, Batgirl ends up with 32 points and a place in the A tier. This is definitely a solid place and way above average, proving that over time, even the basic DC characters would see more abilities and improvements as Dimensions went on. Rounding out the LEGO Batman movie, and up next, we have the boy wonder himself, Robin. Though this wasn't the version of Robin many people wanted to see in Dimensions, this is the version of Robin everybody got in Dimensions. He's got some cool tricks up his sleeve, and I'm keen to see how he ends up on our list. For abilities, Robin has 8 in total spread across 2 different forms. When playing as Robin, he can use Acrobat, Illumination, Fix-It, Dive, and Vent Access. But when transforming into Nightwing, you can also Pole Vault, Laser Deflect, and Glide. It's also worth noting that by combining Dive with Fix-It, Robin can also fix things underwater. Yippee. Finally, Robin is also capable of transforming into his Teen Titans Go variant, just like how Cyborg can do the same thing. Unfortunately though, in this case, the new form doesn't unlock any new abilities that the other forms can't already do. Once again, like Batgirl, Robin does possess a decent number of abilities, but the most notable one by far is his exclusive Vent Access, which is an ability he uses mostly during the Batman story pack, and again is entirely relegated to the second half of the game, which limits its utility quite a bit. Still, there are some handy abilities in the mix, and I'd say Robin gets a 6 out of 10, being on the same level as Batgirl overall, but nothing amazing for a year 2 rep. For content, Robin ups the ante slightly from Batgirl. Whilst yes, they both share the same hub and story pack access, Robin has his Teen Titans Go form, which, whilst nothing notable in terms of abilities, the voice lines and animations completely change, which is worth an extra point at least. So Robin's content score is a respectable 9 out of 10. Robin's minifig situation also mirrors Batgirl's quite well, given that this is an incredibly common character in the LEGO Batman movie theme. But here in Dimensions, there does appear to be an exclusive facial expression, making it a technically exclusive variant for the game. Overall, I'm a bit indifferent with this one. I get what they're going for, and I think on a design level, it's well executed. Dual molded arms and legs, and a nice custom hairpiece. I don't love it. Still, being fair, I'll give Robin the same score as Batgirl, a 7 out of 10 for minifigure. So, representation is a weird category for Robin. The movie variant was voiced by Michael Cera for the film, who did not return for Dimensions, with Robin instead being voiced by Robbie Daymond, who as far as I can tell, hasn't played Robin before or since Dimensions. Whilst this is heading for a 4 out of 10, do remember that Robin's alternative form from Teen Titans is voiced by the original actor Scott Menville, who has voiced the character in multiple projects before and since. Weirdly, Menville also plays the unrelated Robin from the opening cutscene of the game. Anyways, this means that they get a combined score of 8 out of 10. I won't lie, the movie version of Robin really isn't my cup of tea. I like some of his voice lines and I think he's got some decent utility, but most of the reason I'd use him is simply down to the vent accessibility. On the other hand, the Teen Titans Go Robin is way more fun, the voice work is spot on, and he's hilarious. But obviously this version is also less useful than the movie version. But looking at the best of both, I'd give Robin a total fun score of 7 out of 10, and most of that is coming from the Teen Titans Go version. Robin's total score is 37 points, putting him in the A tier. Honestly, had this been completely down to the movie version, I can't imagine he'd have done better than B tier, but thanks to the boost from Teen Titans, he placed quite a bit higher. Up next, we have another oddball 80s pick with Michael Knight from Knight Rider. This character from a beloved TV show was mostly famous due to being played by David Hasselhoff, and for having a cool talking car. But how will he fare on the tier list? Let's dig in and take a look. Now, acknowledging the elephant in the room, Michael Knight does suffer somewhat on this list, simply due to the fact that we're not considering vehicles. His car, called Kit, is a big part of his appeal, and without it, Michael only has 5 abilities. Still, these abilities are Acrobat, X-ray vision, hacking, technology, and tracking. It's a decent mix of abilities, but the lacking number put him on par with some of the more basic characters from year 1, making Michael Knight an unfortunate 4 out of 10 for usefulness. Getting into his content, the Knight Rider hub world is exclusive to Michael, given that he's the only rep from the series in LEGO Dimensions. But this is another case for me where the world itself is kind of bland and uninteresting. Still, given the exclusivity, I'll at least give him a 5 out of 10 for content. Just like many of his 80s amigos, Michael's minifigure is both a Dimensions exclusive and the only version of the character in all of LEGO. Unfortunately, in this case, it's a terribly basic minifig. I also noticed the torso is reused in a LEGO Marvel set of all places, meaning the fig has nothing super exclusive to it. Also, this doesn't really look anything like the character to me. Like, there's nothing specifically Hasselhoff about this guy when I look at him. This one really stuck out as lazy to me, and a real buck in the trend of 80s characters having awesome minifigs, giving Michael Knight a 3 out of 10 for minifigure. For representation, David Hasselhoff was unavailable to return for Dimensions, so we have a replacement voice actor with Piotr Michael. I've not really got any strong feelings on how Michael Knight was represented in Dimensions, but again, it's one of those cases where using a backup actor is obviously preferable to archived audio, and this way we can at least still have the fun crossovers. I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. As for the fun category, I'm not a fan of Knight Rider, so I don't often find myself using Michael Knight. Bias aside, if he was more useful in a gameplay sense, I'd probably use him more. But as it stands, I think the fact we aren't including vehicles in this list is probably what stops Michael from scoring any higher. I'll give him a 3 out of 10 for fun. Adding up all of the scores, Michael Knight has a total of 20 points and ends up in the B tier. He's definitely below average, and going off his ability list, he feels like an early year 1 character. Up next, we have Wave 8, which came out on May 9th, 2017. And this one, again, is a very small wave, tied with Wave 5 for being the smallest in the game. This one only included 3 releases, but some would argue it to be one of the best waves in all of Dimensions. Let's hop in and find out why. This is yet another 80s movie that found its way into Dimensions, but this time with the benefit of being a level pack. Will the extra content do Sloth any favours in the ranking? Let's find out. Sloth has a total of 6 core abilities, being able to use super strength, rope swing, grapple, dig, dive, and target. But before you count him out, Sloth is hiding a pretty crazy secret. Once you complete the Goonies level pack, you unlock access to some other characters. These include Mouth, Mikey, Data, Steph, Andy, Chunk, and Brand. That's 7 unlockable characters, all with different abilities and unique properties. Though, admittedly, a lot of the kids do share some common abilities with each other. So to keep things simple, this ultimately gives Sloth 19 unique different abilities once you discount the ones that he shares with his friends. The other abilities that Sloth gains through his friends are Mini Access, Laser Deflector, Silver Blow-Up, Intelligence, Technology, X-Ray Vision, Fix-It, Tracking, Illumination, Acrobat, Sonar Smash, Truffle Shuffle, and Vine Cut. That's probably the easiest 10 out of 10 score on the list. Things don't slow down for content either, with Sloth having exclusive access to the Goonies level pack and Hub World. Both great pieces of content with plenty of things to do. And then there's the 7 unlockable characters, characters, who are all complete with their own animations and voice lines, making another easy 10 out of 10. Sloth's minifigure is currently a Dimensions exclusive. In addition to that, the fig itself is actually really cool. Exclusive torso printing, and a cool custom headpiece. I'm actually shocked at how well they captured Sloth's unusual likeness in LEGO form. This is an 8 out of 10 minifig, with my only real criticism being a very basic set of arms and legs. As with a couple of other older franchises on the list, Sloth's original actor unfortunately passed away back in 1989. Naturally, Dimensions had the choice between archived audio or hiring a new actor, and thankfully they hired Matthew Waterson to play Sloth, and all of the unlockable Goonies kids were played by alternative voice actors, given that the original actors are no longer children. I'll judge this the same way I did for Wicked Witch and E.T. This is a 6 out of 10, and an unfortunate circumstance out of TT's control, making complete authenticity almost an impossible task. When it comes to fun, Sloth ends up being one of the most versatile characters in the whole game. Plus, with all of his content being completely exclusive and genuinely decent content at that, I think Sloth is a lot of fun. I don't use him all the time, but when I do, it's a good time. 7 out of 10. Adding up his scores, Sloth ends up with a score of 41 points and a place in the S tier, proving that not all of the 80s characters in Dimensions have to be basic or poorly represented. Going from one cult classic to another, Chase McCain is the mostly unsung hero of LEGO City Undercover, a game which struggled to do well initially due to being tied to the Wii U. In the years since, we've seen the game make its way to better hardware, and as a result, Chase is finally getting some much deserved attention. Either way, TT Games included Chase in Year 2 of Dimensions, but how will he fare being their own original character? Let's find out. Right off the bat, Chase is actually well known for being one of the most useful characters in the whole game, previously topping my list of top 5 Dimensions characters, and he still holds up. This guy has a total of 15 abilities spread across his 6 different personas. As base Chase, you can use Target, Acrobat, Grapple, Rope Swing, Tracking, and Relic Detector. Some solid abilities on their own, with Relic Detector being near enough exclusive to 3 characters in the whole game. As a fireman, Chase also gains access to Water Spray, Growth, and Hazard Cleaner. As a construction worker, he can use Drill. As a farmer, Chase can use Glide. As a miner, Chase can use Illumination and Silver Lego Blow Up. Then finally, as an astronaut, he gets Hacking and Flying abilities. This insane number of abilities puts Chase at a 10 out of 10 for usefulness. For content, Chase has exclusive access to the LEGO City Hub World, which is a fun enough time that actually continues on the story of LEGO City Undercover, providing a sort of epilogue and showing us where the characters are now. Also, in a similar vein to Finn unlocking new abilities through his hub, Chase's various disguises are found around the City Hub World, with challenges that reward you with the new transformations. This adds a nice sense of progression for the character, and I think it adds more value to the content score. 8 out of 10. Chase's minifigure in Dimensions is an exclusive variant of the character, and one of only 4 different versions to even exist. He's got a nice tactical vest print on his torso, plus comes with his trusty grapple gun. Besides that, he's very basic, but also accurate to the character. As much as I love Chase, I can't rank this figure any higher than a 6 out of 10. Joseph May returns from voicing Chase in the LEGO City Undercover video game, with Dimensions being the only time he ever reprised his role. Chase has a lot of the snarky cop parody personality that he had in his own title, and he feels like a perfect continuity of the source material, just on the wider stage of Dimensions with all of its crossovers. Plus, again, Chase's main gimmick, being able to go undercover in disguises, is also very well represented here in Dimensions, which was really cool to see. This is the perfect outcome for the character, with an easy 10 out of 10 for representation. When it comes to fun, I love nearly everything about Chase in LEGO Dimensions. He's super useful, funny, his content is great, and I love the way you unlock his abilities. He's well represented, feeling authentic and faithful to his own game. Plus, this was about as close as we ever got to seeing a true sequel. I would say Chase is an 8 out of 10 for fun, with no real downsides. The only thing I would have liked to rank him higher is an actual level pack or story pack. When all is said and done, Chase McCain books a total of 42 points, and a place in the S tier, surprising absolutely none of my subscribers. It's a real shame this is the last time we would see Chase. If there's any character in this game deserving a revival, it's him. We're making one last stop in the world of Harry Potter with Hermione Granger, one of the main characters from the films. If she can keep up with the rest of the wizards, there's practically a guaranteed spot for her in the A tier, but we'll put her through her paces and see how she does. When it comes to abilities, Hermione has a total of 13. This is what we've roughly come to expect from her franchise, with many shared abilities with Harry and Voldemort. She's got Acrobat, Magic, Magical Shield, Illumination, Diffindo, Apparate Access, Water Spray, Hazard Cleaner, growth, target, silver Lego blow-up, intelligence, and laser deflector. If that ability list sounds familiar by now, it's because it's almost identical to Tina Goldstein. So with that in mind, Hermione too gets a score of 9 in usefulness. Unfortunately, her only content in the game is access to the Harry Potter hub world, which she shares with Harry and Voldemort from earlier in the list, so the same score applies here too, 4 out of 10. For minifigure, Hermione is okay at best. This is another case where the figure's an exclusive variant to Dimensions, but tons of other variants are out there with the Harry Potter theme, meaning Hermione is not a rare character by any means. In terms of printing, she has some nice detailing on her torso, and not much else. Honestly, this is a pretty mediocre minifigure, 4 out of 10. Representation is where things get a bit weird for Hermione. Now, as you'll all know, I really don't like the use of archived audio in Dimensions, specifically because it stifles opportunities for crossover dialogue and interesting references, and I judged both Harry and Voldemort quite harshly for using it. On the other hand, Newt and Tina from Fantastic Beasts both had their original actors, which I gave them high praise for. Hermione is the odd one out, however, landing somewhere in the middle with a backup voice actress. This would normally be an open and closed case where I'd give her a 5 out of 10 and move on, but I gotta say it, this voice from Erica Lindbeck sounds literally nothing like Emma Watson. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a step above using movie audio, and definitely better than how they handled Bart Simpson, but I can't get over how distractingly bad the voiceover work was when it comes to Hermione.
Hi. I'm Hermione Granger. Time to put some magic to good use.
So with that criticism in mind, I'm gonna give Hermione a 3 for representation, as out of all the characters on this list, I don't feel they did her justice with this voice in particular. Getting into fun factor, I feel like Hermione is a wasted spot on the roster. Not only did she create a weird vacuum by being here, leaving Ron Weasley as the only other main character from Harry Potter who didn't make it as a playable character, but she also doesn't feel like Hermione in large part thanks to her voiceover work. Ability-wise, she's essentially the exact same thing as Tina Goldstein, and overall, a pretty bad character, 3 out of 10 for fun. This puts Hermione's total at 23 points, landing her in the B tier. As I just said, she doesn't stand out much, and when she does, it's for jarring, weird reasons and not for good ones. Wow, we're finally here at Wave 9, aka the final wave LEGO Dimensions ever got. This one is pretty stacked with some amazing franchises, but with it being only team and fun packs, can Wave 9 send Dimensions out with a bang? Let's take a look and find out. We're starting off with Beetlejuice, another character from an 80s movie, which until now have had mixed results on the list. Will he end up next to E.T. questioning his life choices, or will he stand tall next to Sloth in the S tier? Only one way to find out. Getting right into it, the ghost with the most, ironically, doesn't have the most abilities. He's got a decent amount, totaling at 7 altogether. But our silly Spectre does have access to Mind Control, Magic, Slurp Access, Illumination, Mini Access, Super Strength, and Apparate access. If there's one pattern I've noticed here, it's that Beetlejuice has nearly all of the accessibilities in the game, meaning he will get into wherever he wants to go. A dangerous prospect indeed. Still, it's a weird variety overall, feeling kind of like a wizard-like character, so I'll give him a 7 for usefulness, given his weird penchant for accessing locked-off areas. Speaking of areas, the only content we have access to is the Beetlejuice hub world, which is exclusive and actually somewhat fun. I completed this one for the first time ever on stream, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. 7 out of 10 for being both decent and exclusive. The minifigure may actually be the main draw for a lot of people when it comes to Beetlejuice, being the one that I ended up paying the most for when completing my collection. It's another case where this 80s movie character is both exclusive to LEGO Dimensions and the only variant made in all of LEGO. The main thing I like about this fig is that there is a lot of good printing on his suit. The torso, arms and legs all blend together really well, and I think they look good. High quality and exclusivity fetch Beetlejuice an 8 out of 10. We all know that Michael Keaton played Beetlejuice in the movies, but here in Dimensions we got Stephen Wimett, who does a good job playing the character and would go on to return to the role in Multiversus a few years later. So I'll give a 5 out of 10 for representation. Putting aside all of the hilarious GoblinBricks lore about this character, if you know, you know, I don't find myself popping Beetlejuice on the toy pad too often, though this is probably because he's like a more basic Voldemort in terms of gameplay. Still, when he does show up, it's not awful. I'd say he's about middle of the road at 5 out of 10 for fun. Unfortunately for the other characters in the A tier, Beetlejuice ends up with a score of 32 points. This placement is in large part thanks to his amazing minifigure and exclusive content, which put him a notch above most of the other 80s characters in the game. After talking so positively about the Teen Titans in both Cyborg and Robin segments, we're finally arriving at the actual franchise, with our first of 3 characters, Beast Boy. Now, I've been a massive fan of Teen Titans since the original show, but many people, especially in 2017, were not fans of the newer, sillier take with Teen Titans Go. So let's see how they're handled when it comes to LEGO Dimensions. If you're a fan of the character, you won't be surprised that Beast Boy is fairly versatile, thanks in part to his ability to transform into various animals. Here in Dimensions, this translates into a total of 9 abilities, with some interesting details. Getting the basics out the way, Beast Boy can use acrobatics, dive, flight, mini access, slurp access, drone mazes, dig, and tracking. He can also use the Atlantis Elemental ability, which is notable, as only 4 characters in the entire game can even use it, putting its rarity on nearly the same level as the Relic Detector. Whilst the number of abilities isn't much by Year 2 standards, it's a good selection, and I like how it's themed around his different animal forms. Beast Boy is generally quite good, with good mobility options in air and water, plus Atlantis Elemental bumping his score up to a decent 8 out of 10. Getting into his content, Beast Boy shares access to the Teen Titans Go hub world with 2 more characters on the list. Plus, he also shares access to an exclusive episode of Teen Titans Go, available in the Shard. This is kinda wild and really interesting, being the only franchise to include an episode of a TV show in their content score, giving a nice bump on the semi-exclusive hub world up to a 7 out of 10 for content. Beast Boy's minifigure is based on his appearance from the TV show, being designed with this animation style in mind, leaving us with a very cartoony looking minifigure and a design that is exclusive to LEGO Dimensions. Whilst there is one other version of Beast Boy that featured in a LEGO Batman set, the one we have here is still very cool. I actually think the stylized look translates really well into LEGO form, reminding me somewhat of the Mighty Micros line that we used to get for LEGO superheroes. Still, whilst the detailing is basic, it's very accurate to the source material and pays off in a way similar to how the Adventure Time characters worked. This is an 8 out of 10 minifigure. Also in a similar vein to Adventure Time, the entire cast of Teen Titans Go, and by extension Teen Titans, return to LEGO Dimensions to voice their respective characters. This includes Beast Boy being played by his longtime voice actor Greg Kipes. Greg is essentially the de facto Beast Boy at this point, and he's the voice I hear whenever I see the character, which, combined with another brilliant performance in Dimensions, makes for a very easy 10 out of 10 when it comes to representation. Getting into fun, Beast Boy is hilarious, and surprisingly versatile to use in-game. He honestly reminds me a lot of Jake the dog, just not quite on the same level. But still, fun is incredibly subjective, and I would say Beast Boy is a 9 out of 10 for fun. This all adds up to a whopping 42 points, cementing Beast Boy in the S tier. This isn't altogether surprising for me, as we've already seen how well Robin and Cyborg's Teen Titans Go forms did earlier on. Moving on, we're now dealing with the daughter of Trigon herself, Raven. Raven is now considered one of the rarest minifigures in the game, and she's a fan favourite character overall. But I'm keen to see how she does in comparison with Beast Boy, and the rest of the DC reps in the game, so let's take a look. Raven is a really useful character. Her more common abilities include magic, flight, drone mazes, LEGO constructs, and intelligence. But on the other side, she's also one of only 4 characters to have electricity, and the only character to have Raven portals, which I guess is why they're called Raven portals. As I said, this all makes for one really useful character overall, giving Raven a score of 9 out of 10 for usefulness. Raven's content situation is exactly the same as Beast Boy, so I'll be mirroring that score here with a 7 out of 10 for content. Once again, Raven's minifigure is also similar to Beast Boy in the way it's stylized after the show. I like how the simplicity of the character design is reflected really well in the minifig, with basic printing working well for the character design. It's an exclusive figure for Dimensions, and still to this day remains the only version of Raven LEGO have ever made, giving it some real desirability. That in mind, I give Raven a minifig score of 8 out of 10. Tara Strong once again returns to her role as Raven from the Teen Titans Go cartoon, and in my opinion doing a much better job than she does as Harley Quinn. As always, the fact she's played the character for so long does make her the main voice of Raven, and I enjoy her performance here in Dimensions quite a bit. So once again, this is a 10 out of 10 for representation. Raven is great all around. She's plenty of fun, has a good amount of abilities, and I've honestly got no real complaints. I think her Raven portal ability is very situational, though that seems to be the nature of being a Year 2 exclusive ability by this point. I give Raven a 7 out of 10 for fun. Raven's total number of points is 41, putting her just about in the S tier. This is a well-deserved spot for a well-executed character with no real flaws or weaknesses. The only thing that could have boosted her up slightly would be a more significant content pack. Up next, we have the final Teen Titans character in the game, being the Princess of Tamaran, Starfire. I won't lie, the Teen Titans have been cleaning house so far when it comes to scores, being one of the best represented franchises in the game. So let's see if they make it across the finish line or if they stumble at the last second, as we put Starfire through the ranking system. Starfire once again chooses quality over quantity when it comes to her abilities, but like Raven, there's a really interesting mix of semi-exclusives at play. We've got the obvious ones like Flight, Dive, Laser, Heart Regen, and Acrobat, but then there's also Rainbow Lego Objects, which is only shared with 3 other characters in the game, Atlantis Elemental, which again is only shared with 3 others, and finally there's Parseltongue Doors, which, you guessed it, is only shared with 3 others. This means while Starfire has no exclusive abilities, she does have 3 semi-exclusive ones, and useful ones at that. I think this flexibility mixed with some of the more useful common abilities results in a solid 8 out of 10 for usefulness. Starfire's content situation is the exact same as Raven and Beast Boy's, so to avoid repeating myself a third time, we'll give her a 7 out of 10 and move on. Star's minifig once again reflects her status as a cartoon character very well, with some really basic prints on the torso and legs, plus a very nice expressive wide-eyed face print which looks great and suits the character perfectly. This version is exclusive to Dimensions, but there was another Starfire that appeared alongside the other Beast Boy that I mentioned earlier. Still, yet another solid Teen Titans minifig with an 8 out of 10. I just wish we could have got Cyborg and Robin versions, to be honest. Hynden Walsh returns to voice Starfire, rounding out the original cast of Teen Titans Go in LEGO Dimensions, making a full house when it comes to franchise representation. Walsh delivers the perfect Starfire performance, which is exactly what I've come to expect from the franchise in Dimensions. This is another easy 10 out of 10. If I could put a label on Star and her playstyle, I'd say she's like a mix of Superman and Unikitty, being fierce in combat, great at traversal, and a ton of fun to use around the open worlds. You could do a lot worse than Starfire. She's one of the best. I'd give her a 7 out of 10, but only because I feel there's another character coming up that fills her role a bit better, but we'll get to that later. Starfire ends her run on a great score of 40 points, getting her a place in the S tier. I don't think it's a coincidence that all 3 Teen Titan reps ended up in this tier. They were represented amazingly with authentic voices. Their minifigs are unique and exclusive to Dimensions, and they had some great abilities too. From one overly hated cartoon to the next, Buttercup is here representing the 2016 reboot of the Powerpuff Girls. Whilst the show has its fair share of critics, I still want to give Green Bubbles the chance she deserves, and see how she scores on our tier list. Buttercup has 8 total abilities, with many of them being exactly what you expect for a Powerpuff Girl. Flight, Super Strength, Heart Regen, and Dive all being fairly obvious. But on the other hand, Buttercup has some really interesting utility you might not expect. For example, she's also got Gyrosphere switches, Spin Jitsu, and then there's the relatively rare Constructs ability that she shares with only 4 other characters. What's interesting is that Buttercup is the only non-Ninjago character to perform Spin Jitsu, and like Zane, theoretically she would also be able to do it underwater, but we're not counting that one. And lastly, Buttercup also has access to Energy Shield, which is a Powerpuff Girls exclusive ability that she shares with her sisters. However, when recording footage for this game and cross-referencing with the LEGO Dimensions wiki, I have no idea what Energy Shield is, so take that one with a pinch of salt. Though many of these rare abilities are back-ended to Year 2 content, Buttercup has that Spin Jitsu and Gyrosphere utility that makes her very useful in Year 1 as well, 8 out of 10. Buttercup's content situation is a simple one, having access to the Powerpuff Girls hub world, which she once again shares with her 2 sisters, meaning whilst it's a decently enjoyable hub, it's not very exclusive, and about on par with the LEGO Chima situation, 5 out of 10. Getting into minifigures, the Powerpuff Girls all got their starts here in LEGO Dimensions, where they were briefly exclusive until a Powerpuff Girls wave came out the following year. Still, what we have here is essentially a perfect translation from screen to fig. Like Adventure Time, Teen Titans, and even The Simpsons, LEGO has shown a strong ability when it comes to making cartoon characters stand out as minifigs. Buttercup's custom headpiece is perfect for the character, with the large eye printing really selling the piece. Finally, the simple torso and legs are exact matches with the design of the show. This is an 8 out of 10 minifig for me, with the only possible improvement being the use of mid-legs for some kind of posability. I briefly touched on it earlier, but when it comes to representation, many people playing Dimensions don't seem to understand that the Powerpuff Girls inclusion in the game is based on the 2016 reboot, not the original show. Therefore, the voice actors we see in-game are also from that reboot, starting here with Natalie Palamides reprising her role as Buttercup. Regardless of whether or not you prefer the old show, this is still an authentic fantastic voiceover ripped from the right show for the time. 10 out of 10 for representation. When it comes to fun, Buttercup falls into the Superman archetype of characters. She's got some great mobility options, she's got good abilities, and she fares well in combat, and I enjoy playing as her quite a bit. So I give Buttercup a 7 out of 10. This means Buttercup ends up on 38 points with a place in the A tier. This isn't outright shocking. Many Superman type characters seem to do well by this point, with general versatility being a very strong factor. From green bubbles to pink bubbles, all 3 of the Powerpuff Girls made it into LEGO Dimensions. So moving on, how will Blossom, the commander and the leader, fare on our tier list? Well, it would appear on paper Blossom should be more useful than her green sister, due to having 10 total abilities. However, whilst Blossom falls into the Superman archetype like her sisters, possessing the usual flying, laser, super strength, dive, and heart regen, she actually has more in common with Superman than she does with her own team. This is because she also has freeze breath and X-ray vision. Again, Superman abilities. She does still have the benefit of being a Powerpuff Girl, however, bringing Lego constructs and energy shield with her. But this leaves Blossom's standout ability as intelligence, which isn't really all that exclusive. So overall, despite possessing more abilities, I wouldn't say they're necessarily better abilities by any means. I feel like Blossom, if anything, is missing that key thing to make her stand out from the other Superman types. Still useful, but nothing more than a 7 out of 10. The content situation is the same story as Buttercup, meaning Blossom only brings access to the Powerpuff Girls hub world. Same story, same score, 5 out of 10. Again, Blossom's minifigure shares all of the same positive qualities as Buttercup's. Big custom molded head, expressive printing, and perfect accuracy to the show. This is also an 8 out of 10 minifigure. Naturally, Blossom's representation is also a 10 out of 10, given that her voice actor from the 2016 reboot, Amanda Layton, also reprised her role, once again making Blossom's portrayal here in Dimensions about as authentic as it can get. In terms of fun, Blossom is actually my least used Powerpuff Girl, probably because she really struggles to provide a unique utility. She's also very similar to a character we've not yet covered. But yeah, still good, just not a character I have much fun with. 6 out of 10. Altogether, Blossom has a total of 36 points and a place in the A tier. Her main flaw is being too similar to a bunch of other characters, but also not having an edge to stand out. This is something we will now call the Ninjago effect. Now, we're moving into the last of the Powerpuff Girls, and one of my favourite characters in the entirety of LEGO Dimensions. I'll do my best not to let that bias seep through too much, but let's dig in and find out why they call Bubbles the joy and the laughter. And remember, you can't spell slaughter without laughter. Right away, Bubbles has the same number of abilities as Blossom, so that's 10 abilities altogether. Again, many of these are to be expected, with Bubbles too falling into the Superman archetype of characters. So she's got flight, laser, super strength, dive, and heart regen. She's also obviously a Powerpuff Girl, so that means she's once again got Lego constructs and energy shield. But the key things setting Bubbles apart from her sisters are quite significant, with her being able to use Parcel Tongue Doors, Rainbow Lego Bricks, and Atlantis Elemental. These 3 abilities are all semi-exclusive, all being used by only a handful of other characters in the whole game. And if that wasn't enough, she's also got Sonar Smash, which you can use by having a tantrum. This is hilarious. I'd put her just above Buttercup, so Bubbles gets a 9 out of 10 for usefulness. Bubbles also has access to the Powerpuff Girls hub world, so she also gets a 5 out of 10. Again, with the minifigures, Bubbles has all the same background info as Buttercup and Blossom, with a great custom molded head and expressive printing. They're all on the same level, with Bubbles also scoring an 8 out of 10. Like her sisters, the voice actress from the 2016 reboot of Powerpuff Girls reprises her role as Bubbles here in LEGO Dimensions, in this case being Kristen Lee. I think she does a great job as Bubbles, and again feels really accurate to the source material, making her a 10 out of 10 in representation. Look, at some point in this 75 character list, my personal bias was gonna creep in. However, with Bubbles, I do genuinely feel that she stands out in very unexpected ways, like being able to do Parcel Tongue Doors in reference to her ability to speak with animals from the show. Her Sonar Smash is her having a tantrum, plus she's got a ton of utility. I feel she truly is the most fun of all the Powerpuff Girls in LEGO Dimensions. 10 out of 10. Bubbles ends up with 42 points, landing her in the S tier. Now, I know many GoblinBricks followers would have expected this, but I think I backed up my reasoning pretty well in this case. Also, Lego Man Cam agrees with me, so shut up. Those of you who have been paying attention might be thinking, wait a minute, where's Supergirl and Green Arrow? Well, they are considered exclusive characters, due to the fact they didn't get traditional retail releases like other packs from the game. These are now our final 2 characters left to cover, so let's hop in and see what all the fuss is about. Kara Zor-El, also known as Supergirl, was a bit of a surprise inclusion, given that on paper she is pretty much just a female version of Superman. But if Dimensions has shown us anything with 3 playable versions of Batman, 6 nearly identical ninjas, and 4 sorcerers, it's that clone characters can sometimes stand apart in interesting ways. So getting into what many will offhandedly claim to be the best LEGO Dimensions character, let's take a look at Supergirl. Supergirl has an above average total when it comes to abilities, with a complete total of 10 altogether. She's got flying, laser, invulnerability, super strength, X-ray vision, dive, and freeze breath. And if you've been following along so far, these are the exact same abilities as Superman, which is a natural fit for the character considering they're cousins from the same planet. But the bit that sets her apart from Kal-El is her Red Lantern form. When using this form, Supergirl also gains access to LEGO constructs, dig, and grapple. This essentially makes her a hybrid between Superman and a Powerpuff Girl, just with a cool costume change. Still, that's good company when it comes to usefulness, giving Supergirl a total of 8 points in the category. Unfortunately though, Supergirl brought no original content with her, having access to the DC Hub World, even right to the bitter end. I have literally no words for this. 2 out of 10. I mean, if they put me in the game, would I have access to the DC Hub World? Probably. It seems like they're letting anyone in these days. For Supergirl's minifigure, the Dimensions variant is technically an exclusive, being very similar to another version from a LEGO DC set, with the only different element being the hairpiece. Still, as good as this fig is, and it's certainly decent, it's just very generic to me. But as it stands, I give Supergirl's minifigure a 6 out of 10. Getting into representation, Supergirl's voice actor in Dimensions is Carrie Walgreen, who returns from playing the character in LEGO Batman 3. To be clear, this is an Aquaman situation, where there isn't really some super famous voice that everyone agrees to be Supergirl. There is no Kevin Conroy for this character, if that makes sense. So with that in mind, I would put Supergirl's representation at a 6 out of 10. Despite Supergirl's crazy reputation as being overpowered, I think the truth is far more interesting. Yeah, she's basically a clone of Superman. Yeah, she can do a lot of interesting things, and yeah, she's a solid character overall, but in truth, I think a lot of this praise comes from her unique status as a rare or exclusive character. She's still fun to play as, again feeling like a mix of Superman and the Powerpuff Girls, but to me, the one thing truly holding her back is that she doesn't have any kind of unique content behind her. But overall, I would say she's 8 out of 10 for fun factor. With everything taken into account, Supergirl ends up at 30 points and the A tier. This might seem low or somewhat surprising to some of you, but again, this list was designed to take a look at the value of a character's inclusion beyond just things like abilities. When you really dig into it with Supergirl and look past this promotional air of rarity, there's no content there. It's a pretty generic minifigure, and there was definitely some missed opportunity to make her that bit better. Here we are, this is it, the final LEGO Dimensions character on our list. I've been fairly outspoken about Green Arrow in the past, but will this system show us a new side to the Emerald Archer, or will it just reaffirm what I've already said? Well, ability-wise, Green Arrow has 4. There's Acrobat, Target, Grapple, and Pole Vault. This puts him on par with characters from the starter pack. This is a really low number of abilities, and all of them are really common in the roster. I think this is a huge missed opportunity, especially given how useful he's been in previous LEGO DC games. This is a 3 out of 10 for usefulness, and I'm not sure if I'm being too generous. I can't believe I'm still saying this at the end of the video, but Green Arrow has access to the DC Hub World, which I talked about to hell and back by now. But wow, both of these promotional characters bring no new content. This is plain disappointing. 2 out of 10. At least Arrow's minifigure is somewhat decent, though this exact variant was also released in a LEGO DC set, meaning despite the character's unique promotional status in Dimensions, there is nothing exclusive about the toy itself. I like the design enough though, with it clearly being inspired by the CW version of the character. The torso printing is nice, but the rest of the fig is incredibly bare and basic. This results in a 5 out of 10. For representation, Chris Hardwick returns from his role in the Batman TV show to voice Arrow for Dimensions. This is obviously a good thing for the character and lends at least some authenticity to his portrayal. Don't get me wrong, nobody will ever beat Alan Tudyk as Green Arrow for me, but I am happy to give this version a 6 out of 10 for representation. As for Arrow's fun factor, there really kind of isn't one, with him honestly feeling like a reskin of Legolas from Lord of the Rings. This puts Green Arrow's total at 18 points and firmly into the C tier. And there you go, that's all 75 of the playable characters in LEGO Dimensions ranked. But we've heard a lot about what I think of the LEGO Dimensions roster, so I asked some LEGO YouTubers what their favourite characters were and why, and here is what they had to say.
Hello, Just Too Good here. When it comes to my favorite LEGO Dimensions character, it's kind of hard to choose. I mean, back in the day, it used to be Sonic the Hedgehog for a minifigure, because I always wanted a LEGO minifigure of Sonic the Hedgehog, but since then, we've had many sets for LEGO Sonic the Hedgehog. So if it had to be minifigures, I would say probably Marceline from Adventure Time. I absolutely love that character. To see that as a minifigure is awesome. Too bad that it goes for so much on eBay nowadays. Now, if we're just talking about in-game characters, I'm going to choose a crazy one. Barney Gumble from Simpsons because he appeared as a beta character, so he was not in the final game, but if you go into the game files, we have Barney Gumble, and I guess because he's like an alcoholic or something, LEGO didn't want to include him in the final game. But I see these videos on YouTube where they just have a bunch of Barney Gumble clones, and now whenever I think of LEGO Dimensions, I think of these videos of just all these Barney Gumbles.
Hello there, guys. Let's start off. The Doctor isn't the most powerful character in the game, and many of you would argue Sonic and others are better because of their abilities, and while the Doctor has a few, he is my favourite character in the game. You basically get 13 characters in one with all unique idle animations, and the TARDIS interior changes with each one. There is even a secret interior for the 4th Doctor you can get by changing the date on your console. If you didn't know, this character is unreal, and I hope GoblinBricks has him high up, or I'll send Lord Vortek on him.
Alright, this was a very close call for me. All the characters that you currently see on screen were in a very close race for my favorite. But eventually, very narrowly snagging that spot, was Nia. She's one of my favorite characters from Ninjago, and she's got a very cool visual presentation. Her appearance in game is a very striking samurai outfit with a bold black and red color scheme, and she carries dual katanas that she wields with smooth animations. But what ultimately puts her above everyone else is her spinjitzu ability. This whole minigame of defeating enemies to charge up an attack that just shreds through objects and foes alike is just so satisfying. Combined with her samurai mech and a decent set of other abilities, she's a character that I always want to keep on the toy pad.
Hey, it's Lego Man Cam here, and my favourite characters are Blossom and Bubbles because you can just fly around the map so quickly with them. Not only having laser eyes and frost breath just makes them really well-rounded characters who are so much fun to play as.
What's happening, everyone? Jay Shockblast here. As many of you may know, if you followed me over the years, LEGO Dimensions is a game that I identify very often as my favorite LEGO game, and there's a lot of reasons for it. And GoblinBricks hit me up and asked me who my favorite character in the game is. And I've always had a couple answers, and I've really got it down to 2 characters. And it's strange because these 2 characters you can play in a lot of different LEGO Batman and DC games, but I like them because of their rarity. So Supergirl and Green Arrow, I always identify as probably my 2 favorite characters in the game because of how hard they were to get. You know, for me, I played on Xbox, so I had to get like a whole copy of the game for PlayStation so I could use Supergirl on Xbox. I always thought that was cool. And one of the reasons I love her is because she turns into a Red Lantern. And the Red Lanterns are my favorite thing in DC Comics, Atrocitus. And then there's the Green Arrow, who you could only get at E3 or San Diego Comic-Con or one certain year. I got lucky that I was sent one, and yeah, I love Green Arrow. In that moment when that game was out, Arrow was my favorite TV show. So like to have that super rare character that not everybody could use, that's what I loved about them in LEGO Dimensions. But it's kind of funny how my favorite 2 characters are easy to get in any LEGO game when I love the game for all the hard to get franchises. So yeah, I would say that's my answer. Thank you to GoblinBricks for asking my opinion.
I absolutely love Ethan Hunt in LEGO Dimensions. Sure, he isn't like the most interesting character ability-wise, but as a huge fan of the Mission Impossible series, they really gave him everything he needed. I mean, I spent the last couple of months rewatching all of the movies. Then I did it again. It sort of feels like the spiritual successor to the scrapped James Bond game we never got. An espionage character in a LEGO game. It's amazing. He's equipped with explosive chewing gum, drones, disguises, x-ray vision, etc, etc. He just feels so faithful in all of the best ways. And again, even though there are far more useful characters out there, I often find myself choosing him just to hear Kittredge say, "Your mission should you choose to accept it." It wins me over every time. The cat outfit too, that one's a winner right there. This is why I love LEGO Dimensions. Just based on your own personal preference, someone like Ethan Hunt can seem just as fun to you as Superman, even if they are objectively less useful. It's all about what you like. And if you can't tell, I like Ethan Hunt.
Hello, my name is JakiWasHere, and I'm the most LEGO game obsessed guy I know. But hey, maybe that's a good thing, since my favorite character in LEGO Dimensions is someone with basically only one significant ability. These days everyone's raving on about, oh, the most powerful characters in every LEGO game. But can we all stop that for a second and remember that they put a Valve character from the Half-Life franchise into a LEGO game? Like, that's absolutely insane, right? Chell from Portal, one of the most praised and industry trend-setting video game series, is in LEGO Dimensions. And yeah, Chell isn't exactly the most flashy part of the franchise, but she is a beloved part of the games nonetheless. And honestly, her inclusion just makes the game infinitely more iconic. Like, when you think of Year 1 Dimensions, what's the first crossover that comes to mind outside of the Starter 3? If you're British, you might say Doctor Who, but in the grand scheme of things, look who's out there outshining the old Time Lord at every step of the way. This franchise's presence is kind of irreversibly imbued into this game, and I think an expansion based on the Portal franchise without a playable Chell wouldn't have felt complete. Like I said, I haven't played Dimensions myself yet. I've been biding my time and collecting the sets, waiting for the moment I'd eventually get to play it with the full 2015 experience. That little journey has started with this figure simply because Portal and Valve games simply make that strong of an impression on people. Besides, she just looks awesome. Thanks for inviting me to step up to the microphone, Gob. Bye-bye!
So that's it, we're finally done. This video took forever to put together, and I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. Whilst writing this, we passed 8,000 subscribers, so please consider this video my thanks to all of you that have stuck with GoblinBricks all this time. Regardless of how well this video performs, this isn't the last time we'll talk about Dimensions, I'm sure. But I wanted to make this video to show my love for the game that gave me my start here on YouTube and connected me with all of you. Who knows, for Dimensions, maybe we could look at ranking vehicles, hub worlds, or even the levels themselves. Maybe we could look at ranking characters from other LEGO games. We really have just scratched the surface here. I want to give a big thanks to every other YouTuber that took part in this video. You guys are awesome, and you keep inspiring me to create these videos every single day. If you guys want to see more content in this style, make sure you like the video, leave a comment letting me know what you thought, and above all else, consider hitting the subscribe button so I know you want to see more videos in future. If you're somehow still listening to this, thank you again. And until next time, follow GoblinBricks for... Hey, so you're still here. What more do you want from me, man? It's been 3.5 hours. Go outside. Touch grass. Do something good with your life. You know, what's funny about this is I could actually be showing my face right now, and I bet 95% of people watching this video didn't make it this far. Or you're probably one of the 5% that skipped to the end to look at the whole tier list so you could complain about it without watching the video. Either way, thanks for the engagement, I guess. One last thing, I'm going to be on Ryan Seville's channel doing a collab soon all about LEGO Dimensions, so go subscribe to Ryan and then keep your eyes out for that video. Thank you everyone for watching, especially the Goblin friends, you know who you are, and yeah. Bye, and until next time, follow GoblinBricks for more.